The wheel of time turns, and ages come and go, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. The Wheel of Time turns and podcasts come and go. Welcome to WOTCast, a Wheel of Time book and watch club. We are reading through Robert Jordan's epic fantasy series and watching Amazon's Wheel of Time TV show run by Rafe Judkins, who we might be talking about a bit more than usual this week. I'm Caleb Wimble, and with me are Katie Jarvis.
Hello.
And Keely Frank.
Hello. Dan
is out for this week and will hopefully be back joining us next time. You can find us all at WOTCast.net and support the show at patreon.com/WOTCast. Your support means a lot. Even $2 at the Two Rivers tier helps. Join us on Patreon at the $5 Tarvalon tier, and you'll get access to special bonusodes where we talk about things like Wheel of Time short stories and spin-offs, novels and games, other failed TV pilots, and adjacent fantasy series like Dune. This week in particular, we would like to shout out two wonderful new Patreons, or patrons on our Patreon, one of whom is anonymous, the other of whom is Trevor Fail, subscribed at the $5 Tarvalon tier, joining the White Tower and getting access to those bonus episodes. Thank you so much, Trevor. Your support and everyone's support really makes a big difference. If you are listening and would like to email us questions, comments, or corrections, you can do so at contact@wotcast.net with the subject line questions. We'll answer those here on the show. So, we've had kind of a whirlwind couple of weeks of episodes with the show being on the same time as the book chapters. Last time we talked about episode 4 of the Wheel of Time TV show, The Dragon Reborn. We talked adjacent to that about chapters 31 to 35 of the first book in the series, The Eye of the World. Rand and Mat made a perilous journey to Caemlyn, beset by dark friends on every side. This week we are finding out if the great city of Caemlyn will offer safety or is yet another trap laid along their path by the Dark One and his agents. Similar events took place in episodes 3 to 4 of the TV show, with some differences. We saw a dramatic showdown with Loial, the self-proclaimed Dragon Reborn, who we have only really known in the background of the novel The Eye of the World so far. In that showdown, Nynaeve's incredible strength in the One Power was revealed, quote, as radiant as the sun. So again, this time we're going to start by delving into chapters 36 to 40 of the novel, all of which I think take place from... Oh, no, that's not true. I was about to say they all take place from Rand and Mat's perspective, but no, we sneak over to the goings-on in the Whitecloak camp from some of our other characters' point of view. But we do start with Rand and Mat here in Caemlyn in chapter 36, Web of the Pattern. Katie, do you want to give us the general lowdown on what happens in this one?
Sure. In Web of the Pattern, Mat refuses to leave his room in the inn, and he seems to be growing more suspicious of people and just like in less of a good place since Shadar Logoth. Rand meets ogier. I know in the TV show he tells you how to properly pronounce it, but is that right?
Yeah. I think so, yeah. It's very close to ogre, right? Like ogier, and that's the thing he does, yeah.
And named Loial.
Now, I grew up calling him Loial, or like Loial with the emphasis on the second one the entire time. I think I was wrong the whole time because they say loyal in the show, and I looked back in the book glossary, and I mean, the book glossary is sometimes different from what Jordan says, but it says loyal in here too, like the personality attribute.
Loial, yeah. Okay. Well, I really like this character. So we meet Loial in the library, and he gives us some lovely speeches there. Let's see, Rand mistakes him for a Trolloc, and apparently lots of people do. And Loial mistakes Rand for an Ailman, which upsets Rand. And then he identifies him as a Taverine, someone who bends the pattern into a new shape, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, so lots of important character stuff just kind of laid out plainly. I like the way there's almost a sense, especially meeting him in a library, where Loial just shows up as this like knowledgeable lore master who's going to explain things that have been hinted at just in like really plain language, and that, you know, Rand's going to be in denial about. It's almost funny. One of the things Dan wanted to mention not being here was how much he likes that we're getting an introduction to these different fantasy species or races, whatever we want to call them here, distinct from humans, and giving it more of that otherworldly flavor. But it's so low key the way he meets Loial, and it's so and Loial is such a down for being like, you know, somebody who's never been out in the world before, a very, very just congenial, like down to earth, like just says whatever he's thinking about kind of person, lays it on the table. And it's just so low, you know, it's in a library, here's some knowledge, talking about hundreds-year-old history, getting a lot of the world building and background stuff here. Even this is such a minor thing, but I was thinking about Rand observes the shelves must have held 300 or 400 books, more than he had ever seen in one place at once. What this inn is like a book lover's paradise, I guess. That is like an enormous library even today for some, like a hotel bookshelf might have like, I don't know, a dozen books on the thing. I feel like I've been to some places that had a larger room, but they must have printing presses, right? Because otherwise, pre-printing press, this would be like a king's ransom worth of books, like a literal fortune to have 300 books on. I don't know, just random interesting detail.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, is that a lot? Because I have over 600 in my apartment, and I was like, oh shit.
Holy cow.
I was like, oh, okay. You know, way to call out my enjoyment of capitalism here. They have to have something, because I feel like in a fantasy universe where there's any kind of magic, if they don't have at least bare bones printing press or typewriter or something, what the hell? Like, that's kind of the basics I think you'd need.
Maybe the Aes Sedai just use their magic to scroll the books into existence. I don't know.
Right. We get into Harry Potter territory of like just not having basic everyday tools because there's some spell for every situation. You like Loial, you said. Katie, what do you think of this interaction in general, like in this chapter and the things that we do learn here?
I liked his perspective as like this older creature that kind of looks at humans as being so chaotic and disorganized, and their lives move so quickly. I always kind of like that type of perspective. I liked the whole speech he gave about the groves, and just the fact that, you know, he kind of had been expecting the world to be a bit more preserved than it was, and that humans and, you know, other creatures had sort of destroyed it and built it up too much. So I liked his little speeches there. I don't know, something about him almost reminded me of, what are the trees called in Lord of the Rings?
You beat me to it. The Ents, our obligatory fellowship Jordanism here, or Two Towers Jordanism in this case.
So there I was. And of course I love the Ents too. And yeah.
He even has the hasty line, right? He's like, "You humans are so hasty, so erratic," and it's like, okay, young Treebeard, tending to sacred groves. Although I do like the fact that he's basically like, they treat him like a child, and he's an adolescent for an ogier, even though he's like, I forget, like 97 years old or something like that. And they don't think he's basically run away from home. He was not old enough, or didn't get the council's permission to leave the steading. So despite having all this wisdom and like talking about things that happened generations and generations ago, he's a hot-headed ogier.
I liked how Rand and him are sort of on the same page in that regard. Like, they're kind of young travelers out in a world that they don't quite understand or feel comfortable in. So I liked that little camaraderie between them. Yeah,
it's like it's immediately a warm, fuzzy dynamic. It's just very, at least for me, it's very hard not to be like, oh yeah, I forgot how much I like having Loial in the story, and him just showing up makes it feel more, maybe I don't know, like it just makes it feel like more of a cozy adventure story in a way, having him along for a little bit, even though he kind of shows up here and then he's in the background for the next couple of chapters. I like his little his little aphorisms like, I'm afraid they'll say I put a long handle on my axe and all that stuff. Talks about how they built these cities for people, for humans after the breaking of the world. The things you said, Katie, about the land going against itself and all the observations of the ways in which humans have kind of destroyed all the beautiful things that the ogier left for them and ruined the harmony they had going on. He's very upset. He's very worried about giving offense all the time. Every time he says something about humans, and he's like, "Oh, shoot. I don't know if I should have said that." He has this really sad moment where he's talking about all the groves gone, all the memories gone, all the dreams dead. And Rand I feel like at this point, it almost feels like one of the more clear statements of principle and character we've gotten from Rand, where he's you can't give up, Loial. You can't ever give up. If you give up, you might as well be dead. And it's just, sits down in his chair dramatically, feeling embarrassed about his outburst. But it's, at this point, I feel like a kind of un-Rand-like thing up until now to even just say anything passionately or with with conviction. We're starting to get more of Rand coming out as a person, I feel like, in these chapters, and less just like a bundle of adolescent neuroses and judgments and internal I don't know, maybe more of the show Rand. And Loial gives a quote that's an Aiel quote, I guess, and is surprised that Rand doesn't know it because they haven't had that whole bit about Rand not knowing or thinking he's an Aiel yet. He says, till shade is gone, till water is gone, into the shadow with teeth bared, screaming defiance with the last breath to spit in Sightbinder's eye on the last day. Yes, that's the way of your kind, isn't it? And the quote he gives here, and has all this stuff about the Aiel pain in of Vanderosa being lost, but then hearing he's from Netherin and getting into all that. He gets into the Ta'veren stuff you brought up, Katie, which this is the first place that's mentioned, right? Because Moiraine doesn't tell them that in the novel, even though we have a sense of that early in the show. What did y'all make of? We had earlier conversations, right, about how literal the stuff about the wheel is and what the pattern means and all that, and we're getting some pretty literal interpretations of it from Loial here. Thoughts on all that?
So I wrote down just what it says in the back about the Ta'veren is someone who the Wheel of Time weaved all around, surrounding life threads, maybe all life threads. And I feel like this is confusing because I don't know yet who is supposed to be super important. And it seems like each time that one of the characters gets their own chapter, it's just another but it's you're so important. Egwene is the most powerful in the fucking world. Nynaeve is more powerful than Egwene. So it's just I don't know what to think. So at this point, the more that they kind of throw at me, oh, here's one thing that makes you so different from everyone else. All right, whatever. What's next? What's the, we're going to jump to the next thing and fucking Perrin's going to become a werewolf. What the hell's happening? It's kind of hard for me to take it all super seriously. Just because I am just constantly ooh, this means something.
I couldn't help but picture the opening to the TV series because it's just such a literal, I feel like they were oh, they read this paragraph and they were aha, this is what we'll do for the opening. Yeah.
Well, I feel like I always had this sense reading the story is that where I thought this was both, the Ta'veren thing was kind of both clever and so convenient, where Jordan at some point is just what if I made being a protagonist of a story a literal property of my world to explain how the plot just works out in your favor all the time and how all these big things seem to happen for you and all these coincidences occur that seem really unlikely. That is just something you can be in the Wheel of Time, as it turns out, where everything you do ripples out and affects the world around you, and you can kind of try to change the world in big ways that other cannot, but you also can't escape the plot finding you. If you're a Ta'veren, the pattern will find its way to weave around you and try to weave you into something big. And we get sort of a clarification on the future changing stuff here, to where Loial's there is always room for small changes, but sometimes the pattern simply won't accept a big change, no matter how hard you try, and sort of indicating that there is some concept of free will outside fate in a sense here, but that there is a written fate, there is a direction all the big picture stuff has to go, maybe. And both that our protagonists want to escape that, whatever destiny they're given. A bunch of them are like really bucking against it. But also that the Dark One, it seems, or at least Baalzamon, wants to destroy this whole idea. The notion that there is a preordained fate, wants to break the Wheel of Time somehow, stop the pattern. We learned that Arthur Hawkwing, King Arthur, was a Ta'veren, so was Luce there and Kinslayer for that matter. Loial declares that he is like fascinated by this and wants to travel with them, because like why wouldn't I want to travel with the main characters of the story? I've got to find out what happens here. And Rand's like, are you crazy? Like, did you just listen to anything I said? Everybody with us tends to get killed or caught up in all this, and Loial is just extremely excited at the notion of anything happening in the world outside the setting, which I guess appropriately takes us to a chapter called The Long Chase, chapter 37. Keely, what goes down in this one? Do you recall?
Yeah, so this is when Nynaeve sneaks up on a Whitecloak camp, and she comes up with the plan either by herself or I think maybe with Lan, that they find that there's a row of horses, and so they're going to have a distraction so they can try to sneak out one of the kids, because I think Moiraine knows one of them is in this camp, but isn't sure which one. So Nynaeve sneaks in, and she finds Bella along with some other horses, and she cuts the rope for the horses to release them, while Lan is looking around the camp to see who he can find. And then did Moiraine like conjure lightning? Is that what happens? I have a hard time following like what actually she's doing. I think it's lightning.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. Like lightning starts striking around the camp, and presumably she's not actually targeting it at anybody, I assume, because of the Aes Sedai oath not to use the one power as a weapon except against Darkspawn or in last defense of the Aes Sedai or the Warder's life. But we don't see it directly, so I assume that's what's going on here. Are you still keeping your horse count, Keely? Do you know where we're at with Bella back and accounted for, and Mandarb and everybody here?
Let me see if I had them written down. I was happy that they found Bella, but okay. So who was riding Bella? Was that Egwene?
Yeah, I think that's right, because Rand keeps being surprised at how strong of a horse she turns out to be, and how good at protecting Egwene, I guess, when he's really worried about that constantly.
Yeah, then I think it's still at the 4 that we had: Lan, Moiraine, Nynaeve, and Egwene's horse.
I did get a little lol fantasy moment over the line that Mandarb is a battle-trained stallion, which, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know more about horses and horse history than me, Keely, but I think like specifically stallions are like not ever used for military purposes, especially because they are so unreliably horny and opinionated and a problem, and that typically you use geldings and mares for battle. Maybe there are exceptions, but that was always my historical impression. And I remember like looking up stuff about that at one point when like writing horses in a fantasy story I was working on. Let's see. Yeah, we get this sneaking into the camp scene, and the Nynaeve like really proving her chops here on the stealth and tracking abilities she has. And she and Lan are having this back and forth about he lets on that he's impressed with her abilities here. If you're half as good as I think you are, they'll never see you. And Nynaeve is like, she's thinking internally, oh, so he thinks I'm good, does he? And then has this little quip back and forth where he warns her about wolves, or warns her about the camp, but the wolves probably aren't a problem. They usually stay away from people, and she is like, oh, I wouldn't have known that. I only grew up around shepherds, sarcastically. And speaking of the Ta'veren thing, Moiraine pointing out, she's asking Nynaeve to take care because you are part of the pattern too, and I would not risk you any more than any of the others if the whole world were not at risk these days. I think Dan pointed out something very interesting from a story crafting perspective, which was that I thought this sequence was pretty dramatic, and I thought it was a pretty fun couple of chapters here. But Dan pointed out in our chat, wouldn't it be way more dramatic and compelling if they were still holding the captives in the steading, and if that's where Nynaeve and Moiraine and Lan had to sneak in to get them in a place where Moiraine can't use her power, and if the Whitecloaks knew that, and that were why they were making camp here, maybe? I don't know. Maybe it would be impossible for them to know. As far as we know, they don't really have any way of sensing the power. But I don't know. From a novel crafting perspective, when Dan said that, I was like, oh yeah, why wouldn't you do it that way? Because that would really up the stakes here if they don't have Moraine's ability to conjure down bolts of lightning to call back on as a follow through here if things go sideways.
Yeah, but I think that kind of plays into Jordan's kind of convenience that we've talked about a few times. Where like, oh, these bad guys are so scary, they're gonna fuck you up, but not if you cross a pond. I think, or like bribing everyone. Like, I think, it would have been cool to make it more like a stealth mission and have like Lan and Nynaeve sneak in while Moiraine kind of felt helpless that she couldn't do it. Like, I think that would have been really cool, but it's also kind of neat to just have like fucking lightning. Like, I think I also appreciate that. I did look it up real quick because I have no idea. I had no idea about the horse thing. So apparently in the Middle Ages, they did use stallions as war horses. But sometimes they would use other horses because stallions were loud and would give away your position. And then in the 19th century, it says that they did prefer mares and geldings over less easily managed stallions. So it depends on what time period. So I think, again, he just kind of picks and chooses what he's going to write.
Fair enough. Definitely more nuance there than I realized. And I guess we're closer to kind of like a medievalish or Renaissance setting here. We don't have like any indication of firearms or anything. Speaking of pitched battles, I guess, and we get into chapter 38, Rescue, where we jump over to Perrin's perspective in the lead up to this sequence where child buyer is kind of proposing, hey, here's an easy way to escape. It would be we're sick of taking you along and you're slowing us down and we're never going to get where we're trying to go. And if you just take this sharp rock opportunity to get out of here, then that would be better for everyone. And Perrin entertains the idea for a second before even Perrin being here. I guess he is a thoughtful one, but not usually the most quick-witted one. Even he realizes this is definitely a trap. He is just trying to set us up for an excuse to kill us. And then we find out through a wolf that communicates to Perrin that help is coming anyway. Lan shows up, incapacitates Buyer and the guards. They get Perrin and Egwene into Whitecloaks as a disguise to get them out in the confusion as Moiraine weaves all that aforementioned lightning among the tents. Everybody freaks out. We get a nice reunion with Nynaeve and Perrin and Egwene, and they all realize that Perrin's eyes have turned yellow, like in a really dramatic wolf-like way, which we'll also get into for the TV episode this week. And we see Nynaeve doing, interestingly, they did kind of skip this on the show, I think, so we could have that really dramatic scene of her healing everybody after Logain kills them. But here we see her healing, working almost immediately on Perrin, right? She weaves her ointments and everything into him, and almost immediately his huge bruises from the brutal beatings and whippings are disappearing, and the lacerations on his skin are closing up. And Perrin sort of notes sometimes Nynaeve's ointments worked fast and sometimes slow, but they always work, implying that she is doing some healing with the power here. Previously, without quite knowing it, at this point, I think she probably does kind of know that there's something going on in that. We find out that the wolf eyes thing is something Moiraine did not see coming. She says there was no foretelling this, sort of playing the hand that she has been working off some prophecies maybe, and whatever she has been doing with predicting where things are going to go. And she's like, is this something ordained to be woven or a change in the pattern? If a change, by what hand? The wheel weaves as the wheel wills. It must be that. Which is an interesting line that she brings up all the time that we have talked about before that I thought was interesting this week in contrast with last week's episode of the show. Episode 4, The Dragon Reborn. I don't know if this is probably as good a place as any to get into that point. It was a very cool moment of the show, I thought, in terms of TV drama. We had, you remember when Moiraine comes in to meet Logain, because she really wants to know if he really is the dragon, and if she is maybe even willing to betray her own sisters if it turns out he is, because she is most concerned with getting the dragon to the last battle and making sure he's not gentled. And Logain gives this speech about how he hears all the voices of all the past dragons, trying to tell him what to do and what they did before, but he's going to find his own way, and he's going to find a way to be better than all the previous times and using their knowledge, but being a better person, being a better dragon, uniting the world. And he says, after all, isn't that what the wheel wants? That we get all these chances to keep coming back into our lives over and over again, and we get the chance to be better, to do better. And Moiraine has that's a very cool line from Logain in the show from a philosophical context. And Moiraine comes back with the line, the wheel doesn't want anything. It's people who want things. And, this is just something you want. And these voices you're hearing, those aren't past reincarnations. That's not how it works. You're not hearing the other dragons. You're actually just going mad with the Dark One's taint on Saidin, the male half of the One Power. And I thought that was like a pretty cool dramatic moment in having their clashing philosophies there, and then Moiraine sort of like realizing and shutting down the notion that he is the Dragon Reborn. But also, like, that's kind of the opposite of her mantra and of what she has said both in the show before and in the book. She very clearly says the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. And I think, to will something is to want something in the most literal sense, to want something and to make it happen in the wanting. And we've been told that many times in the book so far that people believe, including Moiraine, that the wheel and the pattern were put into place by the creator. Like, they don't talk about it that much, but they do talk about the creator putting light into the world and weaving out and setting the pattern that would be woven from the Wheel of Time. So I don't know. Did you all make anything of that coming back to this passage again? Any thoughts on what seems to me like an interesting contradiction in philosophy here that could have some big implications down the road?
I thought it was an interesting moment in the show too, that I almost felt like there was like a fake out they were trying to give us, which perhaps is correct, that Logain was good in episode 4, because they show him with that soldier and he heals the soldier and says like, I want to do things differently. And then even that speech, it was interesting because like you, I thought, oh, like it sounds like he has a good handle on things and he hasn't gone mad. And it was interesting that was sort of the turning point for Moiraine to realize, okay, he's definitely not the dragon reborn. And so moving on. So it was interesting. And I was watching the show with my husband who hasn't read the books, and he was like, wait a minute, I thought he's good. And I was like, yeah, it was a little bit confusing there. So I do feel like it was a contradiction, and I'm not sure if they were trying to do a fake out and then maybe there just wasn't like the impetus for Moraine's turn, or like what was supposed to be the audience understanding, this person isn't good after all, wasn't like clear enough or something. Maybe that was what tripped me up about it. But it's interesting that you bring about also the fact that it seems to be a contradiction, because she does talk about what the wheel wants. Yeah,
and I, as far as Logain goes, I thought that was a pretty cool way of depicting it, since we mostly only get him in secondhand rumors in this first book and what other people think of him as a dragon or false dragon. But I think that's the thing. I think they were working with nuance there and saying he's not necessarily good or bad in those in like story terms and protagonist terms. I almost get the sense, even in that discussion with Moiraine, because she also brings out the fact that, yeah, you're powerful, but I've been meeting a lot of really powerful people lately, like surprisingly ones, and you're not nearly powerful enough, and making it almost more about, it's not the fact that he is good, or that he's a good leader or bad leader, or a person who's fundamentally trying to do good, because he ultimately wants the same thing she wants, right? He does want to fight the Dark One. He wants to be. He thinks he is the dragon. He's convinced of it. He believes he's the Messiah who is going to save humanity in the last battle, stop this huge being of ancient evil from devouring the world. And for Moiraine, the problem, almost as much as the fact that she's not convinced, the reason she's not convinced is real, almost seems to be that he's not strong enough, right? She has the radiant, when the real dragon shows up, he or she will be as radiant as the sun, and your power is just like a drop compared to that, which almost, that maybe feels like we're playing in, again, it's that similar Dune thing where there's all these maybe potential Kwisatz Haderachs that have come up over the years, but it's not a matter of like whether you have the right intent or the right beliefs. It's about being in the right place at the right time and having the right powers and the right thing. So I don't know. I think they're doing some interesting complexity there. Keely, you brought up that really good Rafe Judkins AMA that he did on Reddit the other week, and that was one of the ones he talked about where somebody asked him directly, why did you choose to make Logain a much more direct part of the story early on? And he was like, well, we just thought it was a much more interesting thing on screen to be able to visualize what it's like to be a male channeler in this world and what's going on with the false dragon plotline rather than just having it be something that is told to the characters, which I kind of agree with completely from a storycraft thing. I think it's more fun and more active to see he said that Judkin said that anything that they could communicate about the world through character and character action they wanted to do rather than having it just be like lore dumped on characters one way or another. But yeah, it's interesting to see if that will conflict ideologically with where we're at with things for Moiraine here in particular, or when we finally do meet. We still don't meet Logain these weeks in person in these chapters. We're still not to that part yet. Anything else we should talk about in chapter 37 or 38 rescue here about the reunion here and catching up on everything between these characters and about the pattern itself?
Yeah, we find out that Elias was a warder.
Yes, right. Oh yeah, big reveals there. That adds a really interesting element to him being hunting down by the Red Aja, right? For the change that starts to happen in him. Is this also maybe... Oh, sorry.
No, I'm thinking like, okay, so they've said that the Aes Sedai has like a crazy bond with their warder, and Lan knows that he knew Elias from when he was a warder, but he doesn't go into it very much. So that this whole thing says to me that something happened to his Aes Sedai. That either she died, or I don't know if they've said it in the book, because like the show, I just watched it earlier, so that's more in my brain. But can someone actually break the bond between a warder and an Aes Sedai in the book?
I don't think we know yet. Okay. Do we? Katie, do you know if we've had that come up yet? I don't recall anybody saying at this point.
I don't think it's come up in the books. I don't think, yeah.
Okay, so like at this point, I think the only thing that we can kind of reasonably assume is that something happened to his Aes Sedai, that he is now on his own. Because you would think that if his Aes Sedai was still alive and they were still bonded, he wouldn't be living in the woods.
Right. Hanging out with wolves for his whole life is new pack here.
And that I wasn't super clear on. So like now Moiraine and Lan know that Perrin has this like wolf thingy, but it wasn't clear if the wolf thing is something that the Dark One gave to Perrin, or it's just something that the Dark One knows can happen, like, but he doesn't have control over it. So there was just some kind of like ambiguity for me about like, is it actually a negative thing? Does Moiraine think that? Is she just kind of like, we'll fucking see what happens? Like, I wasn't super clear on that.
And it's confusing because the wolves supposedly hate dark friends, right? So
or shadow spawn like the Trollocs, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that aspect is confusing too.
I think it's ambiguous too, in that this is also, Perrin sort of notes that this is the first time that he's really seen a point of real tension between Lan and Moiraine, that Lan seems to actually be trying to not, like, he kind of like, and he wants to say something in private to Perrin beyond Moraine's earshot, and that he maybe has a different perspective on this because of his relationship with Elias as a warder before. Though because this is book Lan, he says like 2 lines, and he's like, he was a warder before ellipses, trails off, before what happened. The Red Aja, and then again, ellipses, trails off. Nothing beyond that. I feel like if this were Showland, he would be talking for the next 5 to 10 minutes, explaining in detail all that happened here and just putting all the facts on the table and letting us know about we can get the implication here that he and Elias may have been friends, may have known each other well, that this maybe was something that really affected Lan's life, but who knows? It's book Lan. He's not going to tell us. And
he's not going to rip his shirt off at the end of the conversation. No. So we can only like guess at what he's hinting at, but he says something about the Red Aja. Can warders potentially be channelers?
Interesting question.
Like, could an Aes Sedai be bonded with a warder and then realize that the warder can channel, and then that would trigger the Red Aja going after, and that would, potentially sever the bond or relationship with the warder and the Aes Sedai, assuming that their person wasn't red. Could have been red, but I don't know.
Well, except the red don't take warders, which I don't think we've learned explicitly in the book at this point. Maybe we do in these chapters because we get to meet our first red in person with Elaida, but the show has made explicit now in the last two episodes that the red they're not just they're not just like the cops of the Aes Sedai and like fierce protectors of the world. They're outright, or at least Leandrin in particular is an outright misandrist. We find out for some interesting reasons that I guess we'll get to when we talk about episode 5. So they have a very different philosophy from the Greens and even from all the other Raja who do take on men as warders. But that's a very interesting theory, Keely. We should put a pin in that one and return to it later. The question about what happens if a warder can channel. But I don't think we get any firm answers on that here.
I think I'm just setting myself up for failure with all of my conspiracy theories, and then like whatever ends up happening, I'm just gonna think like that was fucking lame. I could have wrote it better.
You've been right a couple times though.
You even just made me think that like maybe Elias had to be unbonded from his Aes Sedai because of his wolf connection. I don't know, but maybe those two things can't go together for some reason.
We'll find out. Maybe next time. I don't know. I haven't read the next chapters, and now the show has me discombobulated about what happens when. Though I do know in these next chapters, we go into chapter 39, Weaving of the Web, where Rand is he's traveling through Caemlyn. We get loads of vivid descriptions of this incredible city, like partly built by the Ogier, and all the crazy architecture and going on, and some interesting sight of all these like huge, beautiful carved gardens and the way that the city is sort of built into the landscape, rising up on the hills. He tries to get a look at Logain in his cage, but a filthy beggar who Rand doesn't get a good look at, but perhaps seems familiar, points him out and like kind of starts screaming in a crowd, drawing attention to Rand. And Rand runs away because, as we've learned, tensions are really, really, really high in Caemlyn right now. A lot of violence is breaking out, especially between the two factions, the Red faction and the White faction. The red ones who are monarchists or loyalists to Morgase, and the people with the white strips of cloth or the white like adornments on their hats, who think that Morgase is doing a shit job and Elaida is an awful, evil vizier from the Aes Sedai, and that she is running the kingdom into the ground, and that's why everyone is starving, and all these wars are happening, and yada, yada, yada. Rand climbs up the walls to get a better look at Logain, and then he falls over the side and gets knocked unconscious. Yeah, a lot of city details in this chapter. I think I tipped my hand that I certainly thought that this was Padden Fane showing up once again in the crowd with the beggar sequence. Interesting here because Logain has not been gentled yet at this point in the book story. So he is in the cage being paraded through, but Rand thinks that he still looks like a king. Like he looks like incredibly like untouchable, and like he's the one that's actually in control, and the Aes Sedai are still shielding him at this point. We learned that they're still cutting him off from the source as he is like paraded through. Oh yeah, the innkeeper talks about this beggar who's been asking around after them too. Half mad, I hear, he says, and but you know he's not gonna betray his guest because he thinks that the man might even be a dark friend or something, or looking for one, and that there's Whitecloaks all over the city looking for a dark friend who matches Rand's description. Or Matt's. Yeah. What do we think about this chapter?
Yeah, I also just assumed it was Padden Fane, because otherwise that would make no sense. Because that's the only like crazy looking person that's run at them. I wrote down, Rand sees Logain and thinks Logain wasn't defeated. Because I think at least like what's happening in the book is playing into my idea from the start that Logain let himself get caught. And that just like confirmed to me that Rand looked at him was like something freaky about him. That like he almost would be like smirking. I don't think he actually was smirking, but like that's how like the whole thing like, hey, dumb women think they can control me. Like that's kind of what I thought, that like he was letting himself get caught because I think it would be known though that if you got caught they would take you to Tarvalon.
Yeah. And I wonder if the show still supports that reading of yours, because he does seem like so in control on episode 4 of the show, right? Up until the moment where the wild card appears and Nynaeve goes Super Saiyan after he just killed a whole room of Aes Sedai and warders. I could still get the sense that he had planned all that, or if not like directly planned it, had a contingency. So yeah, now you have me thinking. I do wonder, like, was his plan to get paraded into the city and then dramatically, like in the middle of the city, kill the Aes Sedai that were shielding him, have his army come marching down on Caemlyn, and then like use that as, because he just did that in Gul'dan, basically, with the king of Gul'dan, and that would be his next kingdom. Like, what more dramatic, messianic kind of moment could there be, right, than throwing off his shackles in the middle of this parade, which I can only assume we didn't get, and the show is compressed because they're just getting rid of almost every city scene and inn scene, and we see in this episode 5 that we're going to get to pretty soon that they just folded everything that happens into Caemlyn into Tarvalon instead. But yeah, I don't know. Like I've been thinking about your theory about that, and it makes, I think yeah, maybe he did plan all of this, and there was just, but he did not foresee this ultra mega powerful new channeler showing up and throwing a wrench in his plans.
Right, because like if he thinks he's the Dragon Reborn, then he assumes he's more powerful than anyone else that could show up. And
Yeah.
like even in did they explain in the books, or is it just in the show that we learn that the Aes Sedai can link?
We haven't gotten that in this story yet. I don't think we even know how they captured. Oh no, maybe somebody did mention. I think, it might have been mentioned in passing. Yeah, the Aes Sedai. I don't know if they said they linked, but that they snuck in while he was sleeping, basically, and
and they blocked him off.
Shielded him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like again, I'm maybe making something that's not there, but just this idea that like he thinks he's super duper powerful, and so what better way to show the people of Tar Valon that he is actually the most powerful than to kill the Aes Sedai that are like claiming that they've captured him and we're so fucking fancy, and then he's just gonna go nuts and explode them all or something. But like in the show, I think we mentioned last time, like they make it a point of saying if he was actually struggling, wouldn't he be like shaking a little bit? Wouldn't he be like a little bit sweaty? And he was just chilling in the cage, and then at one point he notices, I think is it Leandrin that like loses focus for a second? It's either, I don't remember which one it is, but someone like loses focus for a split second, and he like he uses the power to test it, like haha, and it's like, okay, so he's conscious there, watching, listening, because they also say like, oh, he can't hear us. I don't know how convenient.
Right, yeah. Especially when we find out and have confirmed there that female channelers cannot see the weaves of male channelers and vice versa. Somebody who uses Sayadin cannot see Sayadar, and somebody who uses Sayadar cannot see Sayadin. So how much do they really know of what he's actually doing and warded? And it does make you wonder, as powerful as he is, would he not like set up wards? We know that Moiraine can set up wards to alert her when danger is coming, that the Aes Sedai were still just able to sneak past and get through his whole army into his tent in the first place. I think you've convinced me. I think probably it was his master plan and then got undermined by, nope, just kidding. You're not the actual dragon. Sorry. We've met somebody else. We found someone else. And we had a nice time together, but it's time for all of us to move on with our messianic story.
Yeah, like his big mistake was hurting Daniel Henney. Don't fuck with him.
Yeah, which gets us into our last chapter for the book this week, chapter 40, The Web Titans. Katie, what's the gist of these ones? We're meeting a lot of new people who have shown no sign of appearing in the show at this point, although the show has also introduced us to characters we haven't met in the book yet.
I thought this was a kind of a cool chapter. Rand comes into the palace gardens, or rather falls into them, and he is discovered by the daughter-heir of Andor, Elayne Trakand, and her brother, and also, so the brother is Gawain, maybe?
Yes, that's the traditional Cymric or Welsh pronunciation anyway, which I only learned recently from watching some King Arthur movies.
And then there's the half-brother, bit older, Galad, and they're taken to Queen Morgase by him. And there, Rand is interrogated by Morgase and her Aes Sedai advisor, Elaida, and the Captain General Gareth Byrne. And Elaida foretells pain and division for the whole world, with Rand at the center. It seemed very much like, I don't know. Yeah, it was a bit foreboding and a kind of intense moment there. And she tries to convince the queen to take him prisoner, but the queen believes Rand's story and sets him free, which almost felt like the queen just not necessarily believe the Aes Sedai, but she just wanted to assert her own authority. I kind of got that feeling. But I was glad that she did. And I liked this chapter because it gave us a look into like a different aspect of this world. And we're sort of in this different kind of scene in a palace, which is different than kind of just roaming the streets and going from inn to inn where we've been in the book so far. And obviously there's the interesting kind of tension and camaraderie that forms between Elayne and Rand.
Yeah, she takes an immediate shine to him, and once again we're meeting somebody who just it seems finds Rand sexually irresistible at first glance, but also seems to to be curious about him. Just to, maybe the element of, wow, like probably never meets anybody just falling off the wall into the gardens. Gowyn's pretty good natured about it, but Galad we learned is like a real tightwad, a tattletale prick that his half sister Elayne just like outright says that she hates the moment he walks away. Not the best of sibling relationships here. I've commented on a lot of the Arthurian stuff that's been coming back again, but Gowyn is one of the knights of King Arthur's court. We had the Green Knight come out this past year, which is about that character, that film. And Galad sounds to me like a version of Galahad, who is another one of the Knights of the Round Table, and who is the like really, in some depictions, the really self-righteous, uptight by the book one. So it seems like we've got either some very direct references, or I don't know if it's at this point if it's going to be meaningful in a more literal sense, since we did get the stuff about, oh yeah, King Arthur actually happened in this world 800 years ago, and he tried to build his own Camelot and all that. But yeah, I also liked getting the court scene here. I know you have, I don't think you, you know what? I was going to bring up a Dune spoiler thing. Never mind. I'll bring it up at a future time because Keely, you haven't had the chance to finish the first book, have you? This scene with Elaida reminds me very, very, very strongly of a certain Bene Gesserit scene that happens in a courtroom in Dune with almost exactly the same kind of tenor. But it's maybe one of the first points in this book I'm starting to get like, oh yeah, here's the other big influence on the series besides the Fellowship of the Ring. Here's an element that they've left out the show, I think, entirely so far. Rand is shocked to realize the entire palace gardens are like verdant green, like flowing with growth and flowers and everything, because everything is withering and dying everywhere and spring is not coming. And it's like just like this endless dregs of winter left over, and people are beginning to fear, they're already beginning to go hungry. They're fearing they're all going to starve. And we learn Elaida has been using the one power to nourish and make a garden here, which upsets Elayne because Elaine's like, people need food. Couldn't we do this for them? It seems obscene that we're like living in this kind of luxury here with a garden and Elaida, which tells us something about her personality. It's like, well, I could do the same thing for one farm, maybe with about the effort here. Do you want to pick one, sweetie? Do you want to choose our peasants to be elevated in just this way that even before we meet Elaida, really really sets me, at least me, on edge against her as a character. Like not good news. Probably, although she is the first Red Aja we meet in this story, and she's I think she's pretty different from what we've seen of Liandrin in the show so far. She's well, for one thing, she's a much more immediately political figure here, right? Way we get the sense she might be the power behind the throne, or at least people seem to think that. And like you said, Katie, it seems like Morgase is kind of trying to assert her own autonomy here in a way. But we also learn, like, it seems like everybody thinks either Gareth Bryne runs the kingdom or Elaida does, and Morgase is kind of just caught in between the two of them to some extent.
Yeah, this whole thing kind of reminded me, we've been watching The Great Season 2, which if you haven't watched The Great, highly recommend it. It's I think it's Elle Fanning of the two. Yeah, it's Elle Fanning as Catherine the Great, and then Nicholas Hoult as Peter. And it's very much a comedy. But this whole thing reminded me very much of, spoilers for Season 2, of Catherine wanting to be like a totally chill leader, like doesn't want to hurt anyone, and then Velamentov on the side, who's like the war general, just wanted to kill everyone. I was getting that vibe because we just watched the first couple episodes. But I felt like, again, we have this oh, you're so fucking powerful, you're gonna have such a big impact on the whole fucking world, with no additional context. No one explains shit, but somehow everyone knows everything. All these Aes Sedai, fucking Loial, everyone has this insider knowledge, but not enough, or they're not willing to share what will happen or whatever, which I guess maybe they can't if, they think it would impact their behavior, which would change the pattern or whatever. But I wrote that down again. I was like, same vibe with Egwene and Nynaeve, that they're super fucking powerful for the first time in a long time, which is also kind of fucking rude. When they say that around other Aes Sedai or on other people, it's these guys are going to be really powerful, unlike your weak ass. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. again, though, they don't explain, but they freak out over his sword, that he's got the Heron Mark sword. Why is that important? I feel like they've mentioned that so many times, but I don't know why Tam had it. I don't know why the Heron Mark is so fucking powerful or what it means. Rand clearly doesn't, but everyone else does, and they're not fucking saying anything. It's like, even when Morgase realizes that, like, she believes Rand, she's still not volunteering any fucking information.
No, and it's funny because she even Morgase with Elaida is like, just tell me, speak it like plain and simple. Like, none of your Aes Sedai cryptic bullshit this time. Nothing vague. Just tell me the foretelling. And then Elaida gives some cryptic bullshit. Anyway, that's all. And completely non-clarifying, other than the fact that Rand is going to be at the center of a whole bunch of awful suffering and chaos, which says nothing about whether he'll be responsible for it or if he's just going to be, continuing to be at the middle of all these big events. We get more inclinations of Elaida's personality when she's like, oh, just get a few weeks imprisoned will not harm him. Just they'll give me a chance to learn more. And of course she can't lie. She's the sort of person who really thinks that a few weeks in a palace dungeon is not harming someone. That's just, that's just who Elaida is. And she wants you get the sense of like Rand as this interesting lab rat she wants to study, which is probably true if she thinks that he's ta'veren. And this is the first time. Is this the first time in this novel that we have confirmed that some Aes Sedai can actually just straight up prophesy and apparently tell like a direct vision of the future beyond, like, Moiraine has sort of cryptically referenced things that she seems to know about the future, but nobody has said the word foretelling. Have they? In like this capital F foretelling, like a thing that Aes Sedai can sometimes do?
Not that I've noticed, but I mean, isn't this like the first time though that we're meeting any other colors other than Moiraine? So we don't really know if they can, because also, like, I didn't know that. I don't know if this is specific to Elaida or if all Red Aja or all Aes Sedai can fucking manipulate nature. Like, we know that Moiraine can like conjure what the hell was that? Like a whirlwind thingy, because she tried to sink the boat when they came across. So we know she can do that, but no one has explicitly said like, oh yeah, I could save your farm if I fucking want to.
Yeah, we've gotten way more in the show so far, and still not much about how the Aes Sedai function and what the different Ajas are. We may have had some inclination. I think maybe Moiraine said at some point that she's at her strongest when working with air, I think. So we maybe get the sense that some Aes Sedai are better at other things, better at some things than others. But no, none of that has really been explained to us. Caemlyn feels like the place where we're finally getting some things explained or context given to them, though still less than the show has given us to date. And they make I think the show makes the pretty good visual shorthand, I think, of the different color Ajas of Aes Sedai always wear only that color in their clothing, which is handy for a visual medium, I think, and just so you remember right away, because that doesn't seem to be the case here, because Elaida's actually wearing green. I think she's wearing like the most like startlingly emerald green dress that Rand has ever seen. We get long descriptions of people's clothing here, and like Elayne's like very, very beautiful like fur-lined dress and the silk and the emeralds that she's wearing. And yeah, I kind of enjoy the side tour to getting like introduced to this palace setting, and even the way that Elayne and Gawain both speak in this kind of flowery, courtly way, and it's like they just walked in from a different kind of story, like a medieval courtly romance with the way that they see the world and talk about things. And we get the sense, I think, that this is not the last we're going to see of any of these characters, as Rand narrowly escapes without getting thrown into Elaida's experimental dungeon here after getting this whirlwind tour of the palace. That's all our chapters for this week. Any final thoughts on where we are in Eye of the World here? I'm sure we'll come back to it as we talk about this week's episode of the show.
I'll just say I enjoyed this set of chapters. Like, I felt like we got a variety of like action and new information and philosophical ideas. I felt like it felt like a good grouping of chapters this week.
Yeah, and I really liked, I don't think we really mentioned it, but I think the final inn, or maybe the one that they're like currently at, is run by someone who knew Tom and was like, oh, like what happened to him? What did he get into?
Yeah.
And so I like that we're learning more about Tom, and I'm hoping that this is very much falling into the, he died off screen, so he didn't actually die kind of thing. So, but this is also
which the innkeeper even says, right? I'll believe it when I see it. He's Tom Maryland's not dead until then.
This is even making me even more pissed at the show for how they handled Tom. That it's we're learning so much about him, and then the show just kind of wrote him off.
Yeah, he was previously my least favorite of the character depictions on the show so far in terms of what they changed about his design. I think I have a new least favorite, at least visually speaking, that will come up in the course of Episode 5, Blood Calls Blood. No shade on the actor whatsoever. I actually think the actor seems pretty great for sounding like Loial and what I think of Loial so far. Oh boy, when he shows up though, I guess we'll get there. Episode 5, Blood Calls Blood. First thoughts on the beginning of this one from last night, or you both watched it either last night or today, right?
Yeah, I watched it this morning, and at the time I was on lunch from my job, and I was probably being the most disgusting person because I was eating leftover pizza, just screaming at my computer watching it, just begging for someone to fucking channel, just kill everyone, I hate everyone, is screaming and cheering when the wolves started eating people. It's fuck yeah! So I felt a lot of mixed emotions with this one. You guys kind of set me up though to be disappointed by your reactions to Loial in the chat. So I was waiting to hate what they made him look like, and I do.
Yeah, I guess he's the ogier in the room. Let's see. Oh, I don't have it. Does anybody have that description I posted of him from when we meet him in these chapters in the books here? He's described, I don't have the quote right in front of me, but he's described as standing almost 10 feet tall, head leaning down so he doesn't brush against the roof as he comes in, broad face, snout, almost snout-like nose, eyebrows that hang down like tails, and pale eyes big as teacups. His ears are long and come to tufted points through a shaggy black mane of hair that twitch when his emotions are running high. And I am picturing, this sounds like Beast from Beauty and the Beast to me, which I brought it before as a character description, other than maybe the shaggy eyebrows hanging all the way down, giving this kind of sad, droopy look. And Aran freaks out and thinks that it is a Trolloc before him in the library. He's stumbling back, trying to yell his word. And you can think, I'm picturing this 10-foot hulking mass of a thing behind me in the room I just walked into. And we meet him on the show, and he's a dude. He's some dude with, he's got curly hair and slightly tufted eyebrows, I guess. He's maybe an inch or two taller than Rand. It's hard to tell at the angles there, and he doesn't look particularly huge, but Rand still freaks out and has this reaction like he's a Trolloc. And I'm like, did you see the same Trollocs I saw on this show? Yeah.
I'll say my setup for watching the show last night was basically just funny because my husband's watching it with me. He has been disappointed so far because he didn't read the books, but he was really excited for the show. And I think he just had his expectations set way too high, and he really wanted it to be the next Game of Thrones. And that's an expectation that was put out there and just ruined things. And so even the opening shots to the show, my husband Phil is just that shot is so underwhelming, and why are they just showing these close-ups we're on a set somewhere, and where he's freezing the screen and being this could have been a beautiful shot when you see the different colored Aes Sedai kind of walking forward, but it's not a beautiful shot. And then the Loial comes onto the screen and he's what is this? And I was just oh man, this is just not going well today. And of course, there's still so much to enjoy about the show, but I have to say this episode was it felt underwhelming in both like the plot that happened and maybe also in the visuals overall. And that was just like a bit of a bummer.
Yeah. And I guess I've said this off air, but I should be clear. No shade on Hamed Animashon. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but I think that's the name of the actor who is playing Loial here. His voice is spot on, and I feel like he's doing the physical presence. And, his performance here, I'm sure if this were like him on a green screen with all the dots on his head instead of the finished makeup we'd see here, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is going to be great when we see the finished product. Or even if they just did, there are practical ways, it sounds like, that Phil was pointing out about the way you can compose a shot to frame a scene and lend it the drama that you can't always do with a budget. There are ways they could have filmed it from like lower camera angles when it's showing Loial with like Rand's back turned to make it look as though he is dominating over the scene. There are tricks and tips that they used a million of, even in the cheaper, earlier Harry Potter movies for Hagrid, who is not a CG creation for the most part. He's like a combination of camera tricks and a guy with like a big fake head on when you're seeing him from behind. I don't think he's like an especially even super tall actor. Or of course, like they did really intense stuff in the Lord of the Rings movies with like moving sets to get those scenes where Gandalf looks huge by the hobbits and all that. But a good half the scenes from the making of are just them doing, the things you do with a camera in a low budget production to make someone look big that I did not think that they were even bothering with here. We get a few interesting shots, I guess. I don't know. There was the image of did we open this one on the Aes Sedai doing the funeral for the fallen warders and the others who died, and oh boy, I had forgotten her name last week, but the green Aes Sedai who died was Kerene Sedai. Her warder is Stepin, who is probably the main character of this episode, as it turns out. I think he gets more screen time than anybody. Interesting decision. I liked him and I liked his performance. I really liked Kerene last week. I had forgotten that she is a major character in A New Spring, the prequel novel. She doesn't show up in Eye of the World at all because she is, and we only find out about her fate off screen. So these are not things that we're going to get to directly. I think we'll meet Stepin in The Great Hunt right at the beginning. And I am so sorry if I have implied at points in the show that, oh yeah, we won't be spoilered constantly, I don't think, by the season because we're ahead of reading in the book. No, this show is just thrown in so many things from the beginning of The Great Hunt now, book 2, and from A New Spring, the Moiraine prequel that I've referenced many times. But yeah, I really liked Kerene in her brief appearance before she died here. And we're seeing her, Stepin is now forlorn and alone, and we're learning all about how the warder bond is this, we heard last week, this hugely intense thing that goes beyond any normal relationship. You feel each other all the time. It's like a constant other presence in your mind for decades and decades, well beyond the length of normal human relationships, and with this supernatural, like almost joined soul component to it. And we did get this good shot coming up of the bodies buried out. Though another maybe point where I was like, is that really consistent with Wheel of Time philosophy, where they're giving like a sort of lovely brief funeral saying thing here, where they commit all these fallen to the mother's embrace, like to return to the mother's embrace, which I'm like sort of cocking my head and being like, well, that's lovely and consistent with a lot of other fantasy faiths or real world ones. Is that consistent with the image we have gotten of this world where people believe in eternal return and everybody believes very firmly that they are woven back into the pattern as a new person? We've got no mention of like anything resembling an afterlife or like if not a heaven or anything, then this sort of like paradise or returning to even, I don't know, maybe they just mean it in the sense of returning to Earth, then for your body to be recycled and become a part of the world again in the way that your soul will become another person again in this world. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. And maybe it's just because I hadn't really heard. And later in this episode, there's a lot of religious stuff that I do not ever recall being the way that it's depicted in the novel. So I'm curious what your perspectives were as people who don't have that baggage that I'm bringing to it at that point for our what was it you summarized this episode, Keely? Three funerals and a steading.
Yeah, someone on the subreddit in commenting on it said that's what this episode was. It was weird. I mean, the whole thing was like really sad. I was kind of bummed that we're just like seeing Stepin be depressed the whole time. But also I was nitpicking on that whole shot because, you know, the camera comes out and it's like, oh, how powerful. Like, you know, they have them all buried kind of in a circle. But all of the graves were fucking immaculate. Like, they were all just the size of the bodies, every single one. And I was like, that's not how graves work. Like, you know, how much time did that fucking take?
Yeah.
Like, if you measure out each fucking person and then, like, you know, they have the bodies not buried at all. They're just like in a little bit of an indent in the ground. So it's like returning them to the mother. You mean like the wolves? Predators? Because like you're just giving them meat. Like that's kind of they put them all out, and so I thought that was I got hung up on that probably just to like break away from being sad for 45 minutes. But yeah, I kind of got like nitpicky with that, where it just that's not realistic. That's not how it's gonna work.
I'll say one thing I liked about the kind of arc of Stepin's plot in this episode was kind of exactly what you said earlier, Caleb, that it was an interesting way to like have a character exemplify the connection between the Aes Sedai and the Warder, which like in the book that we've read so far, we've really just gotten kind of like a couple sentences here and there about the connection and about like when an Aes Sedai dies, their Warder also dies in some vague way, and we don't really understand it too much. But by allowing this character to go through it, like in a character arc, it did give us a lot of insight to their bond, which I thought was interesting. So I felt like I came away from this episode, if nothing else, understanding a bit more about the strength of the connection between a Warder and an Aes Sedai, and some of the I don't know. I was thinking of the death as more direct, like they died as a result of the Aes Sedai's death, but this is like a different interpretation of that. It's more like their heart is kind of broken, almost in the same way that like they explain a person's heart kind of and self withering away when the power is taken away from them.
Very similar, it seems.
Yeah, that's literally, I was going to say that this is very much mirroring, though, what they said happens when the male that can channel get gentled. At least just from the experience of Tom's nephew, Owen, from what we learned, is that he eventually just lost himself as a person and committed suicide because he's been separated from, like, this big part of him. And it was such a parallel to Stepin because, you know, he can't necessarily channel that we know of, but he's connected to the power through his Aes Sedai, and when that is gone, you know, it's not just like the physical companionship, but that I feel like, you know, it must feel like something was ripped out of him, like, you know, whatever special abilities he had because he was connected, that's gone. And so like, what's his fucking purpose now?
Yeah, and we get interesting development coming out of that with Moiraine, who is talking and thinking, it seems, with her sisters throughout this episode about possible ways, whether it is possible to release a Warder from the bond. And you get the sense of these scenes, and I think last episode too, the stuff that she is, you know, realizing how dangerous her life is and it's become, and seeing what is happening to Stepin, that she cares very, very deeply for Lan, the sense I get here, and is realizing, God, this is probably going to happen to him because I am in like the most, like all of us are in a dangerous line of work, and I'm probably in the most dangerous line of work of any Aes Sedai, and realizing that this is on her mind, that the looks that they exchange throughout this, the complication that is introduced as multiple characters give voice to the fact that Lan is very obviously falling for Nynaeve, and Nynaeve is falling for Lan, and nobody really knowing maybe what that means in terms of the complications of an Aes Sedai Warder relationship and how close their bond is. And even the bond between warders, if they're with a green Aes Sedai, the green Aja, who will often take on numerous warders who it seems develop just as deep a connection with each other as they do with the Aes Sedai herself. And actually, is it Alana? I'm totally blanking. I think it's Alana Sedai, the green, who is pretty prominent in this episode. I forgot to look up her actress, who I'm really liking so far, and had wanted to say something about that. I like her character a lot in the books, and I like her performance so far. True of most of the characters in the show. And she and her warders, it seems, are probably going to offer Stepin to like come into their bond and basically make him part of their family / polycule. and maybe share or take some of the pain away, it seems. That is not to be, as we find out in the course of this episode. A really depressing episode, like you said, Gilly. It's a lot of sadness throughout. A lot of stuff in the White Tower, because we are right into Tar Valon. Everybody is arriving in Tar Valon. Screw Caemlyn. We're skipping Caemlyn completely. Anything that happened in the capital city of Andor is just going to be compressed into here. Logain is being paraded through the streets here, but he's not that tall, regal, kingly, undefeated figure. He's kind of dead-eyed looking and just sort of collapsed over in a husk. Except for now, Rand and Mat have showed up here, and Mat is looking dire. They are wandering into the city. You learn they've been on the road about a month, and Rand still, when you see him, like he's looking still pretty fine and showered and elfin when you first see him in his like green cloak there, and then you see Mat behind him looking like death itself, and being so paranoid he like curses out a small child who bumps into him and everything, like threatens him. And we don't get the scene with the beggar pointing out and screaming out at possible Padden Fane, calling out at Rand. Instead, we get a weird moment where it seems like Logain is doing it and looking over and seeing either Rand or Mat or both. I think they both seem to think that he is looking at them and like this like really like sudden, I don't know, the camera is communicating this like staring into their soul moment, and he says something, I think, directly to them, which I've already forgotten. It's ominous is all I remember. And Mat almost kind of falls off the wall in that moment.
Right after I saw that, the ending of that scene made me believe that maybe that was all in Mat's head. So then I was like kind of confused, because at first I thought, I was like, which person is he looking at? And then I was like, oh wait, maybe that didn't even really happen, and that was all in Mat's head, part of his like overt possession, which... Yeah, I was going to ask how you guys felt about how overt his possession seems.
Yeah, I got the same vibe, because at first I was like, oh shit, is Logain not actually gentled? Is he still fucked up? And then they like hard cut to Mat and then cut back and he's actually still like a hut. So I feel like that was just something that Mat imagined, or like it's just something fucking with his head, and not necessarily Logain either actually doing it or projecting it, unless they're gonna make Logain, somehow still a bigger character even though he's been gentled, which would not make sense for anything else, but fuck it, who knows.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. The communication was that it was something that only Mat could, because I guess you can read Rand's expression either way, that he's like freaking out about Mat being freaked out, not necessarily that he's seeing any of this. And I think I was kind of importing the beggar scene that mirrors it, the probably Padden Fane scene from Eye of the World, where it happens to Rand, and Mat is not there because Mat is like basically dying of paranoia and loathing and depression at the inn, and not wanting to talk to anyone or eat anything, which he does go to right after this, right? Like he then leaves Mat at the inn, where it's not named, I don't think, the same inn as the book. We don't meet anybody here. We don't meet Tom's friend. We do hear that this is the inn Tom sent them to rather than the one in Caemlyn, because I don't think Tom ever would have sent them to an inn in Tar Valon from what we have learned of Tom and what he has advised them so far. Like, I feel like even in the show, Tom had no intention of ever letting them reach Tar Valon. He was going to try to get them away from Moiraine long before they got near to Aes Sedai clutches and the Red Aja in particular.
Yeah, it makes no sense from what we know about the history of Tom, because they said anyone associated with Tom is at risk because of whatever went down with the Queen. But he is not that person so far in the show, right?
Nope, not that. He's just a gleeman as far as we know, I think.
Yeah.
Who had a nephew who could channel.
Yeah, so unless they're like gonna introduce that later, like bring him back later, this makes no fucking sense. So I feel like in order for this to flow with the rest of the show, that it would happen in Tar Valon instead of Caemlyn, they need to eliminate that part of his character.
Which would be really sad, because I like how we instantly know that he is tied into all this Caemlyn back drama and the royal court here and everything. And even have the innkeeper commenting that there are like rumors about the parentage of Elayne and Gawain, who have a different father from Galad and all this stuff. And that Tom was like the paramour for years and years and years for Queen Morgase.
I was sad to not get the whole Queen Morgase scene with him falling into the garden, and I don't know if that scene will happen in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, I liked that scene quite a lot in the book, and I was kind of hoping to see it in the show too.
I suspect we'll get a version of it because, as we've learned, one thing we learned in chapter 40, right, is that Elayne is about to be sent to Tar Valon, and Gawain is going to accompany her as her, he's sort of as the oldest brother or the chosen brother or whichever. He's like her honor guard. Like, it's his duty in life to make sure that she becomes queen and to keep her safe. And they're heading to Tar Valon, so maybe he'll still meet Elayne and Gawain here, but then is I don't know, are Elaida and Morgase also going to show up, or are they just going to give Elaida's parts to Liandrin, this other red sister who is here in Tar Valon at this point? I don't know. There's so much compression going on at this point where we have skipped so much, and yet at the same time drawn in so much plot from later in the book or from the next book or from a different prequel book entirely. I no longer have any idea how they're going to handle some of these things related to that.
This episode was the most interesting for me so far as book versus TV show time frame. Because I feel like we've been reading the book for quite a while now and watching the TV show only for a couple weeks. And we're pretty much on par / some parts of the TV show are ahead. So it was just an interesting perspective, kind of trippy there.
Yeah, mirror universe versions.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was disappointed, gonna go back to Loial for a minute, one of the things that I was disappointed with was that the reason that he's in the library part of the inn to begin with is because the innkeeper was like, you need to fucking hide, because everyone is shouting at you in the streets, you're so scary looking, everyone, and then he's like, I want to come with you, and Rand in the book is like, fuck no, we're supposed to be hiding and chill, we're not gonna pull a Perrin and Egwene and go with the loudest fucking group on the earth, we're gonna try to, sneak around. And so then in the show, he's maybe 6'3" and has a deep voice and a thick body. And so he's like, all right, I fucking fit in. Let me gather my shit and I'll be along with you. And I was like, you're taking away from something that I thought was so cool, is that he has this imposing presence, which very much to me, like you guys were saying, feels like a Treebeard. He's big and
gentle
slow.
Giant, yeah.
Yeah, and they took that away and basically made him, I said in chat, just made him a thick boy with a baritone voice, and we're we fucking did it. We don't have to do anything else.
Well,
I was going to change the subject, so if you have something to say on this, go for it.
No, I was about to transition us into getting into the White Tower. Were you going to change to something else?
I was just going to talk about the scene with the Way of the Leaf people. Because I just thought that was another interesting way that they because in the book we didn't get the Way of the Leaf people actually standing up with their passive ways to the Children of the Light or to anyone. So I thought that was also another interesting way that the characters were kind of given authority to explain or show us rather than explain what their kind of way of life is. So I thought that was kind of cool. But I did want to ask you guys what you thought. Another character that I feel they changed so much was the male character, the male Way of the Leaf character, that Egwene liked.
Aram or Aram?
Yeah, I thought his character was changed so much in the show. He sort of has a flippant attitude about his parents and even about the Way of the Leaf, whereas in the book he is steadfast to the way and kind of even overtly preachy about it. So I thought that was an interesting character change as well. But anyway, I did enjoy that scene where you actually get to see the way that they are passively responding to the resistance.
Yeah, they're doing the sort of civil rights era Martin Luther King nonviolence approach of doing this human body chain, one of those tactics used in the street to actually literally stop off the Whitecloaks, who, okay, lots to say about the Whitecloaks in this episode too, but who we learn who Aram insists, as awful as they can be, they won't hurt or they won't kill Tuatha even Whitecloaks won't do that. So we're getting some of the softening of them here, and they do have principles, and they do even though they're being brutal cops here, basically beating down the Tuatha, trying to do the body link, the chain, to stop them from getting Perrin and Egwene. Well, by the end of the episode, I think we'll find that the show Whitecloaks are like, if there's any ambiguity about the Whitecloaks in the book, there's none here. They are just completely evil to the core, sadist, just openly hunting down Aes Sedai across the country, and don't even really need pretext of you being a dark friend or having, like, they take Perrin and Egwene captive in the book because Perrin kills a whole bunch of, and like kind of a misunderstanding late at night, Perrin and the wolves kill a whole bunch of Whitecloaks, and he's like acting like an animal in the fight and just like tearing between them and ripping like shoulder off of them with his teeth and stuff and bearing into them with the axe. And even then, Lord Bornhold is like, oh, we're going to let Egwene go. We don't think you did anything other than hang out with the wrong company as soon as we get to Caemlyn. But yeah, and he has a full interrogation first, and he lets Perrin condemn himself. And like, basically we talked about, I think you and I, Katie, like building up a list of indictments against Perrin, essentially, as Perrin admits to all these like things that seem really bad from somebody who doesn't have the context of his situation. No, the Whitecloaks here are just like, like the most evil inquisitorial, can do whatever they want somehow without starting a war with the Aes Sedai, evil McBadbads, sadist on the face of the earth. I don't know. I thought this was over the top in some ways with that in a way that's, but Dan thinks the opposite of me. It seems like Dan thinks that this like gave them more menace and made them more of an interesting set of antagonists in the story. Where did you all come down on this depiction here?
I particularly didn't like the fact that who is it? Child. What's the main guy that's interrogating them? Child.
He's a questioner. He's not Child Buyer from the book, and he's not. What is his name? Is it Ivan? What's the guy's?
Well, anyway,
I'll try to find it.
Yeah, you find it. Anyway, that guy. I particularly didn't like that he made this disclaimer that if Egwene did channel, then she would die, and if she didn't, then Perrin would die. Like that aspect I didn't like. It just seemed, like you said, it like made them just fully bad to me.
Child Valda.
Okay, yeah. So that was one aspect that I was just like, okay, well, that's like not really following any kind of set of rules at all. That's just evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's one thing that they've done with him, which is like every scene that he's in, he's eating, and somehow that just makes him so fucking gross. And I don't know. Yeah. I think it's because it shows how nonchalant he is, how the violence doesn't impact him. That he's eating, and they keep showing him like gently carving shit, whatever. And then he goes over and he's like carving Perrin, and so it's just like that aspect of it. It's just like, oh, you're fucking gross. Like you're such an asshole. I hate you. But why are you fucking eating?
That's a classic, I feel like, for villainizing someone. It's like Denethor, again, in the Lord of the Rings movies, like tearing into that tomato while he sends his son out to die on the battlefield.
Doesn't the Baron in Dune do that too? There's like a particular scene where he's just like really grotesquely eating, and I've always like, I hate that.
Abdul Salas, by the way, is the name of that actor who plays Aemond, who I think is doing a great job with with what he's given script-wise here. But like you were saying, Keely, he's like all like to show us how unflappable he is in the face of violence and what he's capable of. He seems like he's fearless and he's a sadist. But then the moment that Perrin starts growling slightly, he's like freaking out and oh no, what is this? What am I gonna do? And stumbling backwards. That felt like one of the clumsier filmmaking moments we've seen in terms of Perrin hadn't done anything yet beyond like his eyes go yellow and he's like sort of growling and he's not giving a particularly monstrous looking performance. I feel like that's the implication, but he's just like some dude who has just been like had his back carved to pieces and now his bonds are cut. And, Valda's still like standing there and I think he's armed. Like it's not clear why he is freaking out and like a scared child, literal child, instead of pulling out his sword or anything. He's just, I don't know what is going on with that character or characterization there.
I kind of took that as he is so focused on the women having access to the power. And it wasn't clear to me whether Perrin actually channeled or whether Egwene like gave it to him or something, because we did see like the little smoky tendrils around Perrin. So I think maybe in that moment it just caught him off guard, because he's expecting this entire time to torture women and for women to be the threat, and for Perrin to have any kind of other ability. I think he was like, oh shit, I'm fucked. Like,
which is bizarre. Which is bizarre though, because we know that the Whitecloaks hunt down male channelers worst of all. Like even they think that the male ones are worse than the women, right? They're more dangerous. They're uncontrolled. They're the ones who go insane. So I like, why? Like why is he so? Shouldn't he be like, this one, and then like, and because he's. This was another thing Dan brought up off air. He's like, what? How is he just freely hunting down Aes Sedai, who can do these incredible things? How is he? And I'm wondering, how is he capturing them alive? Like, I could believe if he like kills a few in their sleep, maybe, or like shoots one luckily with an arrow. How is he capturing these Aes Sedai so he can like do this whole elongated torture and then burn them at the stake? Why aren't they just blowing the whole camp up or smiting him with lightning? What is the mechanism here, and that he's just getting away with this and doing this apparently like all across the country?
Yeah, and like, how is he fucking doing it right outside the walls?
Of Tar Valon.
Like, they made it a point of showing like, oh shit, we're almost there, and then all of a sudden the children are there. So is there like, is it beyond the walls? The Aes Sedai are like, now my fucking problem. Like, how are they able to do this so freely? Just kind of. We know.
You said they can sense channeling from far away, right? You brought that up again, which we know to be true from various points in the book. Like, it's like it's like a beacon on a hill. How are all the this is I don't know. Well,
and this goes into what we talked about earlier too, where or I think we only talked about it in chat, where Morgaine explicitly says to Nynaeve, like, I've got eyes and ears fucking everywhere, and if they show up, if your friends show up, I'll take you to them. It's like, well, where's your fucking eyes and ears? They should be fired. Like, one of them is getting tortured, the other one is losing his shit, sitting and watching Logain. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
She doesn't know what's happening to her own warder. Somehow through the bond doesn't feel that he's been poisoned or drugged to fall asleep. I feel like this episode to me feels. This is the first time I felt like all the compression they're doing, trying to like stuff these chapters into the screenplay, just feels kind of clumsy. Like, it doesn't feel like they worked through all these plot points or really gave satisfying answers to what's going on or remembered where the characters are or what the implications. But I found myself very frustrated in, like, I have not minded like the big changes they've made to the story. Like last episode was maybe my favorite. I loved all the stuff that they brought into there. But this one just has me, I felt like I spent too much time being like, wait, what? How is, wait, yeah, are you sure? Okay, is this going to be explained or, yeah.
I think I said this earlier too, that like I've noticed that almost every episode has a different writer. I think there's been a couple episodes so far that have said like the Clarkson brothers or whatever. And so I'm wondering, are we seeing such like fuckery because they've got more than one writer, that it's like, we're noticing some episodes are like so fucking strong and like, holy crap, I enjoyed that. And then the next one, it's a different writer. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you just eliminated so many things, or like you didn't include shit that was, a big part of the book. And so I don't know if that's actually a part of it. I would imagine that plays in some of it because they're gonna have somewhat creative differences, but you'd also think that Rafe would be more like influential.
But that's his job, right? To make sure that
and so it's shitty that like I am looking for like a who fuck did this? Like, who is responsible for this?
It seems like the arc of the whole show would have to be planned out so precisely, though. It's almost hard for me to believe that like the individual writers of the episodes would have any kind of like overarching plot say. But I mean, maybe they do. I have no idea. But it seems like that almost seems mind-boggling, because like, wouldn't it just have to be like planned out, the whole scope of it, so I don't know, into such specific terms to make it all make sense. But yeah, I will certainly agree that I thought the writing of the first 4 episodes, I would say the writing was strong and the plot arcs were strong, and I didn't feel the same way on this one.
Yeah, and it sucks because, like, the actors and actresses are fucking nailing it. Like, they're all doing such an amazing job. Like, I really, like, I felt for Stepin the whole time. I was like, he's making me cry my own tears. Like, this is so emotional. Like, you really feel like he lost her. But it's not the Stepin show. Like, why are we doing this? Like, nothing fucking happened with Rand the entire fucking show. Like, he basically didn't do anything. We learned that
Stepin's is the only plot which really goes anywhere, it seems.
Yeah,
of all
like,
the subplots.
Other than the conversation with Matt and Rand when they're watching Logain, where Matt says, like, you know, if we go fucking crazy, can you, like, make sure we don't turn out that way? Like, that's kind of the only hint that anything is really going on with the two of them, besides, like, the physical, you know, and then Matt, like, punching a baby while they're walking. But it's just, like, I don't know. It's just kind of frustrating because I just feel like this is, we've reached, like, okay, the first half of the first season, so fucking good. And now it's just gonna go downhill. Because it's like, you know, I think it was Dan that was like, holy shit, we're in Tar Valon already? Like, what the fuck? Like, they didn't even
we have
make
3 episodes left.
Yeah, like, they didn't even make it to there in the book. So it's just, I'm ready to be disappointed, but then also to just move on to the second book.
And there are lovely moments in here. I think there, like you said, the stuff with Stepin, where he does a really good job with it. Something you were saying about Rand. Oh, keyed me. Yes. Oh, I love the reunion of Rand and Nynaeve and just that. I found that, like, really heartwarming. Like that, and her just immediately being like, she's 100% Nynaeve. Everyone in the tower is trying to pull her into their machinations already. We already get the sense the Ogiers are going to be fighting over her. There's Moiraine and Leandrin paired off of Moiraine. Like, the moment she gets to the tower, Moiraine takes her into a room and is like, this is a nest of vipers. Everyone here has an agenda. Don't trust anyone. Don't leave the room. Listen to me. And Nynaeve's like, you haven't given me the most amazing reasons to trust everything you say. But Nynaeve's confidence and her love for Rand and his love for her, like, just this deep familial bond you feel almost immediately that is kind of compressing. I think that's a moment of good compression where we have so many scenes of Nynaeve chasing after her charges in the books, or Rand or the others thinking about what she's up to or the others are up to. But that reunion moment for me was a really good way of like really feeling, yeah, the Two Rivers folks are still in it together here, and Nynaeve is going to go to hell and back to do whatever she has to do to protect everyone. And of course, she's not going to turn Rand and Matt over to the Aes Sedai the moment that she hears that Matt might be able to channel, which to me is just, yeah, I really liked getting that bit in there.
I even liked when she said, like, we're the Two Rivers people, just because in the book, like, that gets said so many times. Yeah. But if you were just watching the show, there's just so much less time to feel that bond. But yeah, like in the book, I mean, we could probably say there's like 100 times where it says the Two Rivers kids, the Two Rivers folk. But I liked how she actually used that phrase, and it kind of like, yes, they are united.
And I'm also happy that it was, like, hard cut from, like, Leandrin being like, oh, there's the fucking library, you should believe me, and go that way. And then it's like, bam, she's kicking down the door for Rand.
Yep.
And I was like, thank you so much. Because it's like, you know, fucking with a 10-foot pole, don't believe a damn thing Leandrin says. Like, oh my god, so I'm so happy. But also, again, Morgaine, where the fuck is Nynaeve? You're supposed to be, like, keeping track of these people, and she's off with them. Like, it felt like a weak episode for Morgaine, stronger for Nynaeve and Stepin, apparently.
Yeah. And I think Zoe Robbins, we've praised a lot of the actors. I think she's just nailing it as Nynaeve here. And her and Daniel Henney paired off against each other. Like, just, yeah, whatever else. I've been thinking this episode a lot of times, especially seeing Loial, had me thinking, God, I wish this were just an animated series. I feel like it would be so much more able to do the things it wants to do as an animated series. But on the other hand, I don't want to lose almost any of these, like, live action performances. The things that this cast is doing with their faces alone and with their interactions in the scenes. I'm really loving what they're bringing to the table. And even speak like the perfect casting of Leandrin as just, I think she gets described at some point. I forget who sees her first in the novel, but they kind of describe her as being composed of more hard edges than it would seem possible for a face to hold, and like no shade on this actress, who she is beautiful, but the moment you see her face and her like hair pulled back in this braid, she's got like a jaw that could cut glass, and just and her eyes just have this "I am up to no good" like piercing, like see into your soul and ferret out your secrets quality of "you are going to serve me someday whether you know it or not" kind of a vibe going on, like real, like just leaning into the role, chewing the scenery.
I was gonna say, even I feel like she does something intentional with like her jaw and her lips. She like purses them or something, like when she finishes a phrase, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, like you totally believe that there's something fucked up. Like that she is totally evil. I think I even said it because I was like live tweeting or live messaging in chat as I was watching the episode, and I was like, oh, here comes fucking Jawbone Sedai, Father Nynaeve. Like, yeah, Kate Fleetwood is the actress's name, and she's fucking nailing it. Like, she is absolutely doing a great job. It's like, it reminds me of George R.R. Martin telling the actor that plays that little shit, I don't remember his name, but basically saying,
Joffrey?
Saying if the entire world hates you, you're doing your job. And I was like, yes, there is no way in hell you're going to tell me that Leandrin is a good character. Fuck her. So,
and nobody's falling for it. Like you said, that's like the best part, that our characters are smart enough to be like, yeah, no.
Yeah, it's like those little subtle hints of like, that's not how roads work, and like, shit like that, calling it out. And instead of, I'm very used to horror movies where they're like, don't fucking go down that way, that's the murder, and they're like, I have to see for myself, and then get murdered. And Nynaeve is just like, fuck you, I'm gonna go find the people I'm with. So I thought that was really cool. I did have a question though. Morgaine is in the room with Alanna, and they're talking, and then Alanna leaves, and Morgaine goes over and like opens something on the wall, and it's like a painting or something. What the fuck was that? Are we supposed to have any idea what that was?
I have that scene before me. I just opened the show in the browser. Okay, she's examining the wall. Okay, quick side piece. People keep getting into bed with boots on in this episode, and it was driving me crazy. Like, Moiraine gets into bed with her riding boots on. Rand or Matt does it. It's like, I think Lan even, everybody's getting into bed with their disgusting road boots on, walking through like shit on the streets.
Well, and
riding horses. And,
what is the significance of boots? Because they point that out twice with the Aes Sedai. They show Kerene's horse, and her boots are in the fucking stirrups, even though she's not there. And then when Morgaine is talking to Lan about where is home, she says home is this horse, it's these boots, it's being with you.
Right. Oh yeah, it's like a motif.
It's again this thing with the boots. I thought the boots on the horse was fucking weird looking and didn't really understand that.
I felt like it was denoting that the Aes Sedai had died. Like that, just to me, it seemed like that must have been some kind of ceremonious indication that like if your horse comes home with just your boots, it means you died. But it's weird.
And Alanna is barefoot in the bed beside Moiraine. I don't know if that has any significance whatsoever beyond the fact that Moiraine points out that, also you're eating in my bed. Is this your new dining room or something? But you get the sense they're very, very close, have this sort of dorm sisters at one point thing going on. I think we found out from last episode. Okay, so I have a freeze frame of the painting. So she goes over, it's got like this gold leaf thing around the edges. This is at 51 minutes and 50 seconds into the episode, pretty close to the end. And it's got like a door she opens, and it's the back of a woman in a blue dress staring out an open window in a castle or tower. And the way that she's framed, it's almost like it's like this infinite regression thing where Moiraine is like standing there in a blue dress staring at the painting in this little door frame, which is a woman in a blue dress staring out the window, which is the shape of the painting, like through. And then out the window, you can see in the distance another window that is being looked through out on another tower, maybe, or something. So there's something about, I don't know, they're trying to set up some sort of image here. It's too brief. Like the camera's only on this for like 2 or 3 seconds of this infinite regression thing of Moiraine staring at what, symbolically it doesn't look like her, but it could be her own back here. I don't know. And then like down the row of like woman staring at woman staring through a window, at a window, at a window kind of thing. I don't know. Interesting that you call that out. That was a strange little completely unexplained moment.
Yeah, there were a couple unexplained things. So it's like am I supposed to know what the fuck that means? Are you ever going to go back to that? Was that just like, so, like, and I, even in the subreddit, I mean, I didn't spend a lot of time because I was getting spoiled for shit, but I didn't see anyone mention it. Everyone was focused on Loial's character, and so I didn't know if anyone knew what that was. Is that something that's part of the books? But it doesn't sound like it.
It is extreme foreshadowing, but so cryptic that I didn't even, I thought about it in the moment in the episode, but I'd forgotten about it, so you brought it up again, and going back and looking at this frame, I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what this is alluding to. So it will come back, but it is a very subtle flourish, and this is not a subtle show usually in particular, although apparently this episode is, because you informed me, Keely, from Reddit as well, that Padan Fain is like randomly in the background of a scene in this episode, completely uncalled out, and that's his whistle that we get at one point, which I had totally forgotten, so I'm just missing huge.
Oh wow, no way. What scene did
here.
that happen in? Do you remember?
Yeah, when Matt and Rand are sitting up on the thing watching out for Logain, they're showing Matt, and then Matt looks out in the crowd, and in the bottom left, Padan Fain is sitting in like what I think is probably like a storefront, and he like looks up at Matt. It's like, I didn't notice he was there, so when he shows up next, it wouldn't have any fucking impact on me, because I don't know we don't know anything about him from the show. Like, the show, he shows up, he's being kind of a dick to Matt, and then, you know, the Trollocs show up, and he just fucking bounces. And then we don't have him for the next 4 episodes, and now you, like, subtly sneak him in. It's like, if someone hadn't said that, like, if I hadn't saw that in the subreddit, I'd have no idea. And then the next time he shows up, be like, well, where the fuck you been this whole time? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's amazing someone even caught that.
That is such a subtle thing that it almost feels like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
But the way the episode has been kind of ham-fisted and like not particular, this episode does not feel well crafted to me as a piece of filmmaking. So I'm wondering if that was meant to be clearer, or they expected more people to pick up on it, rather than being this like Where's Waldo moment of like one brief flash and you missed the Padan Fain there. Because I will say this is the episode more than anything that had me thinking, this show cuts too much and too quickly. And so sometimes I just don't even know why we're going from one scene over to another character. Sometimes it's really poignant and great, like in the last episode, or you get like a real like sting moment, like when somebody says something about, wait a minute, there's 5, not 4, hard cut to Logain's face in the room there or whatever. But then other times I'm just like, why are we cutting? I have no idea. We weren't finished that conversation yet. That scene is still going. Why are we jumping back and forth? And maybe I've just like settled into the languid, probably too slow pace of the novel where we're in the chapters and chapters at a time. But I often felt like some of these episodes would benefit from just make this the Perrin and Egwene episode, just make this the Rand and Matt episode. Maybe in this episode, I guess just wants to be the Stepin episode, whom we've barely talked about still, because it ultimately doesn't matter to the plot, though it matters very emotionally for Lan at this point. Well, we know it can't matter to the plot of the Eye of the World very much, because Stepin doesn't show up on screen in Eye of the World. And we learn, sort of obliquely stuff about warders, but it is very, and I guess we even haven't said it aloud. He kills himself at the end after everybody trying to reach out to him. Everybody's trying to look after him, and like knowing he's in a really dangerous spot because of having lost Kerene, and he's in this, like having part of his soul carved out, as he put it. Like nobody can understand. He says that what this feels like. And through that, we get a lot of little spiritual moments that are also moments of world building. He's lighting these candles at one point to ward off the 13 Forsaken. Haven't heard their names very much, but the channelers who sided from the Age of Legends, who sided with the Dark One, were told here for the promise of eternal life and power beyond imagination, and they were supposedly sealed away by the dragon, by Luz Theron, in that last fight at Shael Ghul. But people still like do these prayers and like warding rituals to keep them from reaching out into the world and touching things and affecting things. I wonder if that'll have anything to do with our nightmares that, Keely, you pointed out have kind of once again faded into the background and disappeared, like for as prominent a plot element as they are in the novel. Like those every time they go to sleep, we get one of those dream sequences. We've had a couple here, and we get flashes of Baalzamon very briefly in this one.
Yeah, and I'm kind of bummed about the dreams because they did make it there was such like a progression where they started having the dreams, and then you reach the point where all of a sudden Rand is actually injured when he wakes up, and it's like, oh shit, like, you know, the Dark One can he's getting closer, he can actually impact you, and now it's just like not a thing. And it was weird because they started off hard with the dreams where like the bat, like him pulling the bat out of his mouth, was so gross, and then Moiraine being like, who's fucking having dreams? Like, share this. And then they just never talk about it again. Something else I was so they talk about Morgane is thinking about, well, what if I break the bond, or can we break the bond? What would that even do? Like, would that remove all of their memories with the Aes Sedai? Like, I don't understand how that could be necessarily a good thing to prevent pain unless it removes memories.
I think she wants to prevent Lan from experiencing her death in that way, as this like utterly scarring, like the most traumatizing thing that could happen to a person, kind of, as it's put here. Like, and we get, I forget if they explicitly explain it here, but when it's explained in the book, and maybe what you were remembering, Katie, in terms of like the warder dies, when the Aes Sedai dies, is that they experience the whole death. They experience the sensation of dying, and then it's like they have died and are still living. It's like this sense that they're just like shuffling on with part of their soul gone and having experienced the moment of death in a way that maybe she thinks if she can spare Lan that trauma, or before she dies, or before anything like that happens, because she doesn't want it to happen. And we get these kind of glances between her watching Lan and Nynaeve, and things shaping up there, and Stepin and the other warders are also commenting on Lan and Nynaeve, to where I think you also get the sense that is Moiraine wanting to step out of the way, like that, so that Lan can be happy in some way, and it's like that he can have a life that is not dragged with, like, I think she knows she is like, you know, riding into Mount Doom from her perspective, seeing all these things happen to Stepin and Kerene, and she's also shaken in her own way by what just happened to Kerene. And we see, you know, at the funeral, one of the rare, like really large displays of outward emotion from her, huge display from Lan, which I don't know how much is part of this very different funeral ritual that we're treated to here from the earlier one, that I wasn't sure what to make of what this very long funeral dirge scene with the Mongolian throat singing and then the chest thumping and whatever it is you suggested, I think, Keely, that maybe Lan is that this is a ritual of, like, I don't know, taking on the pain somehow. I don't know who this lead warder is. Mark Fletcher plays him there. Yeah, the thoughts on this? This is the closing sequence of the show here, I think, for the episode.
That I just didn't. I didn't understand the symbolism of it. I don't know what I was supposed to be taking from it, because Lan is kind of in the front, and whoever that guy is tells him, like, put your hand on Stepin, and so he puts his hand on him, and then they start the chest pounding, and then he screams and rips his shirt off, and what was I supposed to take from that? Like, the dude's dead. I don't understand what. Yeah. Unless, like, I think we talked about, like, what was their relationship? Why is it him? Is it because they were really close, like friends? Is it because he was the last person with him alive? Like, there's just so much ambiguity there that, again, it's like, okay, well, that was something. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel from it. So next episode, I guess.
I think I said out loud, I didn't know they were so close. Like, I wasn't, and I also don't know what he was actually doing when he put his hand on him. Was he feeling his pain? Was he lifting his pain? Like, I was like trying to guess, and I was like, well, it's not clear enough if I can't even kind of come up with a guess.
Yeah. I found the experience alienating in a way that I almost wondered if the showrunners or writers wanted us to feel alienated for a moment, of like, oh, you know, this is a different world than ours. This is a different culture with different rituals. But they didn't, like, give us an into it. They didn't really give us, like, much of a way to connect to it, so I don't know that I like that intention, if that is the intention, to say, look how strange this place is. They do Mongolian throat singing and do this like chest beating ritual that doesn't make sense to Western viewers necessarily. But I would like more context for it. I'd like a word or two more for, I don't know, maybe we'll know next time.
But I almost felt like even if we find out after, there was so much passion, like even in the acting, in the moment,
Yes.
in the scene, and I felt it was lost on me, the viewer, because I couldn't connect to it. So like I couldn't feel the passion that they were trying to convey, because I was just like, I don't know how to connect to what's happening in this scene, and like Lan's just like massive emotion was lost on me.
Yeah, and
I felt very similar.
Yeah, and like I just pulled up the episode to see what the guy actually says, and he says, "Lay your hand on him, relieve us of our grief." What the fuck does that mean? Like, what is? I still like. Is he supposed to be pulling the grief out of? But then, why does it relieve us of our grief?
I guess he's doing the wailing, the dirging for them, like somebody hired at a funeral, like at a shiva to cry like really dramatically, or at a wake or something. Like I believe this is a thing in some traditions. So maybe he's meant to be doing it, but it seems like, so yeah, maybe he's doing it performatively, but it also does seem like it's raw emotion. But yeah, I feel the same thing. I don't really, because I don't know what to make of it. I found it hard to connect to, despite Daniel Henney's like really, he's acting his heart out here as much as he can. It seems like real crying and real emotional trauma, but I just don't even know why he's feeling it, because I got the sense I had thought they were more like passing colleagues. I not that they were best buds for all these years or something even closer. Man, I don't know. I didn't know what to think. Same thing. Katie, you have to jump off, I believe. So we'll say farewell real quick and ask, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at katiejarvis.com or on Instagram at 30inLA.
And Keely, where can people find you?
On Twitter or Instagram at Keely_.
This episode of WOTCast was produced by yours truly. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Caleb Wimble. And remember, you can find all of us and links to everything we do at wotcast.net. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at WOTCast Podcast. And again, support the show at patreon.com/WOTCast. Once again, big shout outs to our new supporters this week, Anonymous and Trevor Fail. Your support means so much. Hope you enjoy those bonus episodes you're getting access to. And if you're listening, folks, and want to hear those, you know where to do it. Join the White Tower, despite what you may have heard about its occupants this week. You could also support us by leaving WOTCast a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. This means a lot, and it's the number 2 way we find new listeners. The number 1 way is to tell a friend about the show. Word of mouth means the world to us. That is all for today. Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll be back next time with episode 6 of the TV series and the next 5 chapters of Eye of the World, which are chapters 41 to 45. I say very slowly, not having it in front of me, but yes, I believe 41 to 45. Either way, it's the next 5 chapters. We're getting right near the end of things. The book will be finished soon. But remember, this is not the ending. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time. This is just an ending. Farewell. Oh man, I did have a lot of extra notes that we did not get to on here. Any of yours we wanted to go to, we could toss them in on the post pod on there.
No, I think the only thing that I was kind of wondering was, can warders sleep with other people? But then isn't Nynaeve, aren't they hoping that she becomes an Aes Sedai? So can a warder, I mean, we know that a warder can go from one Aes Sedai to the other, but can they sleep with another one?
Good question. Well, and can they even go from one Aes Sedai or another if they don't know how to break the bond.
Right, I guess it would only be if one died, because he did say that he was invited to be a green one, and then he ends up dying. But
Stepin yeah,
Stepin.
For a second I thought you meant Lan, and I'm like,
no,
Stepin.
Stepin, yeah. And then the one scene, I think I was bothered by a couple of the scenes, but when the Children of Light show up with the Tinkers, and he turns his head and is like, "You fucking guys," and points at Perrin and Egwene and Aram, and they like cartoon like, "Oh shit," like try to hide. I was like, that was the most delayed trying to hide. He is clearly seeing you. You guys are so fucked. So that was just kind of like a weird.
Okay, but why are they fucked again? In that moment, I was like, wait a minute, didn't he like just let them keep traveling on before? What is he like? What I was not sure in that minute. I must be forgetting something. I'm like, why is he immediately like, oh my god, dark friends? It's like you met them on the road before and let them keep going.
I think maybe he was just suspicious of them, and then he saw them with a different group and was like, oh, there must be something wrong with them. Like, why are they with two different groups? But
how does that even make sense when everybody in the world is like migrating right now and displaced by war, and they were refugees? They were supposed to be refugees from war themselves, right? Like, like Moiraine was playing a noble whose house has fallen, and they're trying to get away from Gildan and everything and get to Caemlyn or Tar-Valon. I don't even. It was just, there were so many moments like that where I'm like, okay, I guess this is happening. I don't really know why, but.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. And one of the things that did, like, I was sharing the trivia that pops up as the show plays. And one of the things was that, they mentioned the dog, and it's like, the dogs kill things, and then that's, how they get meat or whatever. But one of the trivia things was said that they train the dog to not attack. And so that's how they get away with having dogs. So like, yeah, they can go after food because they're dogs, and that's what they do. They need to eat, but the dogs are specifically trained not to attack other people, which they don't really say in the show. I mean, they only showed like the two dogs. But yeah, I don't really know. They also didn't like. Maybe he knew that they weren't who they said they were, because remember when they originally met them and the like leader guy was like, okay, you guys head this way, and he was like, no, I'm gonna go this way, like indicating that he was gonna go the direction that he thinks they actually came from, because Morgane, I'm not sure I remember. Morgane tells them when they first meet, like, oh, we came from this direction and this is where we're from, and then the leader of the children, I assume he's the leader, like the main guy, is like talking to Child Valad or whatever his name is, and is like, okay, you guys should head this way. And he specifically says like, no, this is my job. I will decide where I go a different direction.
Right. I think I completely wiped the scene from my memory.
So I don't know, like, is that supposed to be linked? Did he somehow travel? But like, did he travel down to where did he go? Did he travel to the two rivers? Did he make it to the ferry crossing? Like, there's so much that they're not explaining.
Yeah. And that's a huge distance too. How did they get back? They're just like teleporting across this enormous world that just took random a month to walk from the mining, like basically from the mining town to Tar-Valon. The logistics felt so off here, or so confusing. Anyway, maybe it'll become more clear. Another, I think Dan's friend mentioned, major iconic book thing that seems to have been left out for budgetary reasons. The color shifting cloaks that the warders have. Didn't they allude to it at some point in the show, but we just don't ever see their camouflage cloaks as like their distinctive thing that that's a warder because they've got a samurai sword, but also their cloak is a chameleon magic thing.
I don't remember. I just remember it being such a big part of the book, that even, because it's the three like main cloaks. Is the one that the Fade has that doesn't move in the wind, the color changing ones of the warders, and then Tom,
which he doesn't really have.
Right, that he ends up giving to Rand, who Rand then shows the innkeeper as further proof that he knows Tom and that something happened to him. So I don't know. I'd like to know why they're picking and choosing the shit that they are. Wraith, based on his AMA, seems really excited for stuff to come, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's not all downhill from here. Like, I'd like that they save the best for the last, and that they're going to bring the last couple of episodes in. It's just, I feel like it is a short season, but one really wonky episode out of 8 would not be the worst outcome.
No.
if it came down to it.
It does feel like, there was so much hype, or maybe just in my head, about the Trollocs, and, that like, oh, well, we ended up loving what they look like, so we took the budget and we did other things with it. And then now it's like they put all of their attention and detail into the Trollocs and the, like, town, like the buildings.
Yeah, Tar Valon looked
else.
pretty cool, I thought. It was a pretty neat depiction overall, even though you can tell it's obviously CG when the camera goes back and you see it at day or night. It still looked pretty neat, I thought.
Yeah, it just feels like they're picking and choosing what to focus on, and like obviously didn't focus on Loial, didn't focus on making their teeth gross, because everyone has like immaculate teeth for what they're going through.
Oh yeah, I kind of just accept that as a Hollywoodism at this point.
Yeah.
I
don't know. It's weird. I think they did show, though, I noticed that Perrin did look like he had like desert dust or something all over him. Maybe it was the lighting, but it looked like he did. So it's like, okay, they are making them look kind of gross for being out for a long time.
Back certainly looked gross, and that knife flaying scene. Jesus, that was so like beyond the pale even of the child buyer torture from the book. But he does like cut. Oh my God, those are like. That's not going to heal like those are like enormous chunks of back taken out. I guess is something to put in the episode content warning. That was some serious gore for what the show has had so far.
And I feel like they've had the most gore, because the first scene we get with them, they've got the Aes Sedai burning alive with her hands cut off.
Oh, yeah.
And then with him cutting his back. And I did read, I'll have to link it, I read an interview with the actress that plays Egwene talking about this episode. And something that
Who is Madeline Madden, if we haven't said her name before.
Yeah. Something that she talked about that I completely zoned out, because like seeing her being like forced bathed was really upsetting, but the fact that they brushed out her hair, that the braid is such an important part of the wisdom, and they brushed out her hair and then put her in this like plain white like shift almost, as to like make her almost like born again and like pure and whatever. And so she talks about specifically them forcing the braid to come out, and this is the first time that we see her with her hair different.
Oh wow, yeah, it feels like a forced baptism, doesn't it? Symbolically in that. And that tying into the history of missionaries doing forced baptism and in the face of local cultures, and making them give up, and like the things like in the U.S. was done to Native Americans, where you'd especially doing to their kids, forcing them to probably similar things with the hair as well. I think that was a pretty common practice, was like to cut the hair of young boys or get rid of the braids in pretty much the similar way. Yeah, I think I was not paying close attention in that scene, and I'm glad you called it out. That is such a awful thing symbolically that they're doing to her in this moment, like forcing her into that position and taking away this thing that is a real big part of her identity and culture, like of the few things we've had established, because she's probably gotten the least screen time of everyone lately in the last couple of episodes. Yeah,
and they also pointed out, which I did notice, but I don't necessarily understand the symbolism of it, is that they took really good care of her hand. Like they zoom in at one point of him, I guess he's like cleaning her fingernails or something. And so I don't really understand what that is, unless he like does something with the hands.
So did you catch what he said about Aes Sedai hands?
That he cuts them off, but I guess I missed like what exactly is about the.
Well, he says this thing, that if you're an Aes Sedai, we'll have to cut them off. It would be a shame to have to go there, because he found out, even though he gives us this information that I think we get from an Aes Sedai in the book at some point, not yet, but he says the sisters say they don't need their hands to channel the one power. It's just like something, but it is like a crutch that some channeler or a lot of channelers develop. Like Aes Sedai he doesn't really get into the fact that they'll have different styles, but he has sort of found that a lot of them do wind up relying on their hands to be able to weave and to do things with the one power, despite that they don't theoretically need it. And we see that is that why he leaves hers intact, so that she can demonstrate it? But then she doesn't even wind up needing her hands, right? She sort of channels without it, like in the face of that. Like and I don't know if that's like, oh, he let her know that she doesn't need that crutch and that she can, there's probably a less ableist way of saying it, but like, she doesn't need to be able, she doesn't need to have this motion, and she distracts him by pelting a little flimsy flame at him while either she is burning Perrin's bonds, or you think that it's like left deliberately ambiguous that Perrin might be burning his own bonds there and channeling along with the wolf powers breaking out here.
Yeah, because I mean, they have a habit now of making scenes kind of ambiguous where you don't know what the actual outcome was. Like with Matt not knowing, it not being super clear if he actually killed the family or if the Fade did. We're not entirely clear if Logain actually kind of projected like that menacing face at him as he was being paraded through the city. So I feel like it fits in with that ambiguousness where it's like, I'm not entirely sure what I'm seeing. Is he powerful and we're seeing it, or is she really fucking powerful and was able to, undo his things, and then he just like went kind of wolf Hulk and burst out? We don't entirely know what that is. So I'm not sure. I don't know if they're ever going to clarify any of it at this point, but I guess there's always a chance.
Maybe Rafe will get on another AMA and ask all these unanswered questions at the end of the season if they haven't gotten to them. Although they're already like knee deep into filming season 2, which we talked about in chat, but I don't know if we mentioned on the show that it's on the way. They're doing principal photography. They were like halfway through as of a few weeks ago apparently. And some of the cast members talking about the new replacement for Matt's actor, for Barney Harris, whose name Donald Finn is going to be replacing it. Oh, and I think I forgot to call out when talking about Alana. It's Priyanka Bose is her actress that I really like in that role, and I hope we see more of her soon. I'm trying to get better of calling out everybody's names in general, and I was trying to find who wrote this episode since we talked so much about it. I'm not even sure if this is right. IMDb credits Rafe Judkins and Celine Song for this one. Maybe I can find it. Credits themselves, because that wasn't the name I remembered seeing on screen, but I might have.
No.
And IMDb is notoriously unreliable.
Yeah, I don't remember what the name was. It's not Rafe and it's not the Clarkson duo. It's someone else.
Oh yeah, story editors, Clarkson twins. Okay, so the staff writer, it says, was Celine Song. But who directed this one? Sally Richardson Whitfeld. Interesting. Yeah, I do feel like I want to now look into who wrote and who directed the individual episodes. But, at the end of the day, Rafe is supposed to make sure they're all on the same page with everything. So hopefully we all get back on the same page before the end.
Yeah, I pulled up an article talking about season 2, and it's basically just saying, what we know, that they last said that they're halfway through filming for season 2. Season 1 had one of the biggest launches ever for Amazon. It's most watched series premiere of the year, top 5 series launches of all time for Prime Video, which is pretty cool. I want to look up and see like what's in the top 5. It looks
maybe
like
Bezos will give them a Loial budget for season 2 for post-production.
I don't know. It doesn't say really anything more than that. Just that like maybe it will be end of next year. They're not sure when. Yeah, and just that they have not said why they're changing Matt. But I did see a different interview with Rafe where he said that the new actor is doing a really great job. Like he definitely thinks that it will be hopefully an easy transition. It's just it's such a bummer. The more Matt we get, the more loving Barney Harris. He's doing such a great job. Like his face is so emotive, you really think that like he's struggling. So it's big shoes for the next actor to fill. I'm hoping that he'll be able to do it, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I'm gonna try not to hold it against him, because they do such good casting in general that it's not his fault Barney Harris turned out to be such a breakout here, and try to be open-minded.
And the same article that I talked about where they interview Madeline Madden, Egwene, she talks about spending so much time with Perrin, the actor, blanking on his name.
Rutherford, I think, something.
Marcus? Yeah, Marcus.
Marcus.
But just that he is such an incredible actor, and she feels like, she's really able to develop a relationship with not only Perrin, but also the actor. So it's like, that's kind of cool that, at least behind the scenes, some of them, from what we've been told at least, are really bonding, and hopefully that will come through in the characters.
Yeah, I certainly believe it in the first season alone that these are like the Nynaeve and Rand stuff and all these moments with him, that they are having a good time on set, hanging out in Prague on the weekends and living in on their Czech Republic fantasy adventure for months and months and months at a time. I wonder how much time. I know some of them moved there, I think, or got like seasonal homes there. So I wonder how much time they had in between the shoots, even before getting right back to it.
Ooh, interesting. I just clicked on The Nerdist has done a ton of interviews. That's where I'm finding all of this. But this one is about Loial. And Judkins says there was a couple key things that went into the look for Loial. The first was allowing our incredible makeup and effects designer, Nick Dudman, who apparently worked on Harry Potter, to create a look that would not require VFX for Loial to be on screen. At our budget level, having a fully VFX character in the show who's in normal dialogue scenes with the rest of the group is not really possible. We want him to be a core member of the group like he is in the book.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I mean, again, I kept thinking like I see better makeup on Star Trek every week. Like I'm rewatching a lot of Next Generation, and I know makeup tech has come a long way since then, and I know that there are things you can do with a camera to get around this limitation. So I fully appreciate the not wanting him to be a CG creature, and I do like that he's not, and that he'll feel more real and personable. But it's going to take me a while to accept the bare minimal amount of effort that has gone into. It feels like, I'm sure they put so much work into that makeup, but it does not. It does not come across. That makeup just feels like him. He just looks like the actor, kind of with some flair, like he's at a themed party, maybe. But
yeah, it's harder for me specifically to really think that anyone would be kind of scared of him or like taken aback, because he just doesn't seem that big. And like, I mean,
no.
You know, Jerry is, my husband, is 6'6". So like, if the dude is not massive, it's just an average dude. Like, why would he stand out? But it is interesting. He says, Judkins says, we had people tape from their 20s to their 90s just to see what it felt like with them speaking the word. So they had people audition of all ages to see.
Oh, interesting.
And then it says, our casting director, Kelly Valentine Hendry, and one of our EPs, Marigo Cahill, had seen Hammond perform on stage in London in Midsummer's Night Dream and loved him. The second he came in, we watched it, we knew instantly he was our Loial. Which he's definitely, the actor is doing an amazing job. Like, I think his voice is really deep, and so I do...
Yes, yeah.
I buy that he would be like this big imposing character, but physically he's just not that. And I feel like, I mean, we all agree that's kind of a bummer. Like, they can make Shadowfax look fucking massive. They can make this dude look massive.
Huge shout outs to Kelly Valentine Hendry, though, who I feel like we've not actually named as casting director. I'm glad you did, because she is like the probably unsung star of the show. I guess we're singing her praises regularly, but she also was casting director, according to IMDb, for Broadchurch, for Bridgerton, for Fleabag, Gangs of London, which I haven't seen, for The Last Kingdom, Ghost, these other shit. I feel like hire her, people in Hollywood in general. She knows her stuff, I think, in terms of bringing character actors to the part, because for all I had big problems with where Broadchurch went after season 2 and onward, like just like incredible character casting across the board. And I think she's doing a great job, it seems, like plucking all these newcomers and relative newcomers out of audiences or out of Shakespeare productions and everything else. That is really, I think, far and away my favorite part of the show. I would not hesitate to say the casting.
Oh yeah, the casting is amazing. And it doesn't, even though Rosamund Pike is like a main producer or something, it doesn't feel like the Rosamund Pike show. Which I think we were all slightly afraid of at the beginning, because of she just had so much dialogue, and like she was the narrator for everything. But it definitely feels like, she's just part of it, and it's not just, they brought her in just for the name because everyone else's job. But Kelly Valentine Hendry apparently also is part of, she's casting director for a new Mary Shelley movie. And I am very much a Mary Shelley junkie, so I'll be interested to see who's in it. Is it another
Frankenstein, or what's this one?
Yeah, it's called Mary's Monster. IMDb says Mary Shelley strikes a Faustian bargain with her alter ego as she works on her seminal novel.
Oh, I heard of this. Yeah. It's like oh wait, I think I saw the trailer for what? It's Mary Shelley. What's the name of it again?
Mary's Monster.
I feel like I saw the trailer to this the other month. but
I have a book
that-
called The Making of Mary's, but that's about the book.
So there were trailers for this as far back as 2018, or maybe that's a different movie, Mary Shelley. But there's also one that says Mary Shelley's Monster from.
So there's
28.
a crap ton of books that have very similar names.
Oh, okay. But there is a horror movie that came out about Mary Shelley herself, right? In 2018. Oh yeah, I guess it was called Mary Shelley. Totally different film. Never mind.
Yeah. They do a lot of, because I don't know. I don't remember what it's
Public
called.
domain.
The 200th anniversary or something.
Oh, that's another good reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Mary Shelley's Monster came out in 2016.
But not the book, not the new movie.
So this was a drama
did.
movie.
Oh, Sophie Turner was in it. Interesting. From Game of Thrones, Sansa.
Jeremy Percy Shelley.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, this is it. Wow, they announced this a long time ago.
So this is a remake already?
No, I think it just didn't happen.
Oh.
Because this is a Variety article from 2014, and it's got the exact same tagline about the Faustian bargain. Because it's
Google's very confused. It thinks it came out in 2016.
Taissa, I don't know how to say it, Farmiga, who is the
Not Vera Farmiga? Different
no,
Farmiga?
it's her sister.
Oh, okay.
Vera does the Conjuring movies, and however you say her name, Taissa, something like that, does American Horror Story.
Oh, yeah. Oh, her. I had no idea they were sisters. Oh,
yeah,
my God.
they're sisters. Yeah, it's listed. I wonder what happened.
Yeah, I saw her in something else recently, too, besides the American Horror Stories. What was she? Yeah, she was in, American Horror Story Coven. I remember that. Girl. I know I saw her in something else recently, but I'm not recognizing anything on this list here.
It's interesting because Sophie Turner, I'm on hers, and the Mary Shelley movie is not on. I don't know what the fuck's happening. I'm hoping.
There's photos of her in the pre-production here. So if she's not in it, they must have had to completely remake the movie, which I don't know. Maybe it was a COVID thing. Maybe they did, or it seems like it's
announced in 2004. Yeah, that's the same one that I saw because she plays this her sister, Claire. Interesting. Well, I think that whoever is hiring Kelly should continue to do it because Fleabag alone was excellent.
I still need to see that.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I've only heard praise for it. I've just seen the trailer. And
it's incredible. Absolutely recommend it. But yeah, so I can't believe the show's going to be over soon. I felt like there was so much build up to it, and now it's almost done. But hopefully we'll get some more season 2 before the first season ends.
Are you and Jerry interested in the watch party? I don't know if it's too late for you on the East Coast. We usually can't watch till about 6 or 6:30 here at the earliest, which is like 9 or 9:30 Eastern time. That's when you usually go to bed, right?
Normally around 10, because Jerry gets up early.
Yeah, so especially being at Christmas Eve, it might just not be the most ideal time to try to get everybody to watch it at the same time.
Well, I'll ask him and see if he'd be interested. He's only seen parts of it, but I'm sure up for watching whatever. Yeah, he hasn't watched the majority. He's only seen a couple episodes, or like
that could be really confusing.
Like pieces of episodes. I realized though I knew the actor that played Logain, and I was like, oh, that's why he looked familiar. He's in Money Heist. We watched the first full season of, is it called Money Heist?
Looks like it, yeah. Alvaro Morte?
Yeah, because it's I think it's Spanish, and then there's English subtitles.
Yeah, he's a Spanish actor, soon relocating to Bujalance, Cordoba.
Yeah, it looks like most of what he's done.
I don't think I've seen any of these. I've seen ads for Money Heist, but I don't. Most of his other show names are in Spanish on Wikipedia, which I assume means they haven't really gotten a English language subbed release.
Yeah, we weren't super into it. Watched, the first couple episodes at least, and it just didn't really click. I don't know.
Oh, I think Eric actually started this, and he fell off as well. Right, it's on Netflix, which probably means there was a dub for it, which I can't stand on live action. But Eric can't stand subtitles.
Oh, really?
Although he does speak Spanish, so he might have watched, usually that's the one exception he'll make. We can watch Spanish stuff with subtitles. So most of the foreign films we watch are Spanish films because I hate live action dubbing. It drives me crazy. I like the mouths not lining up, and the actors are never right. I like it for animation. It's fine there. It doesn't bother me, but seeing somebody's voice come out of their mouth that's obviously not their voice and missing so much of the nuance of what they're saying doesn't cut it for me.
Yeah, we normally just do subtitles, and then I never do dub. I've tried doing dub for anime, and I can't. I have to do subtitles. Yeah. There was One Punch Man, I think on Hulu, had either dub or sub episodes, and I had to do the sub every time because the dub was such crap.
Oh, I remember liking that one. I saw it both.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I thought they got the gist of it. It just bothered you though.
That, and also I think Attack on Titan had a couple. I think I tried watching dub.
My God.
And it's just the voices just they're not as dramatic as I need them to be for anime.
Except for Eren, who just never stopped screaming. And because we went back and forth, like we'd see one season sub because it wasn't out in English yet, and then we'd see one dub. Whether Japanese or English voice actor, Eren is just drives me crazy in those first couple seasons. He only screams. He only communicates in top of his lungs, hates everyone at all time. That is the main character, right? Eren? At first, anyway.
I don't remember his name. It's been a while since I've watched. But then you must fucking hate, oh my God, what is it? I think it's on Prime Video. There was an anime I started watching, and they just scream the whole time. Let me see what it's called. I think it's got Dr. Stone.
No, I haven't even heard of it.
It got recommended to me, and so I started watching it, and it's about like a post-apocalyptic something happened, and it turned everyone to stone. But the main character breaks out, and then he has to figure out kind of like why it happened, and he's like a chemist or a scientist, so he's just really fucking arrogant. And
the cover art, I'm like, these characters look a lot like the Yu Yu Hakusho characters.
And I didn't make it through season 1 all the way because I just got so angry at them fucking yelling the whole time.
Endlessly.
Well, yeah, and so it's Taiju is the like next character. There's I think Senku is the main character, I think, and then Taiju. And Taiju's obsessed with this one girl that he goes to school with, and so like he finally decides he's gonna tell her that he loves her, and then everyone turns to fucking stone, and then he breaks out and he has to go find her body in stone, and so it's just like the over the top in love with her, but you don't really know that much about her, and so he's just screaming the whole fucking time. It's like, that's a little much for me.
I mean, that all sounded compelling until you said the screaming endlessly part the whole way. It's some good fun drama.
I made it through, I think, like half of season 1. There's only 12 episodes, I think. And I was mostly enjoying it, but then also Jerry has no tolerance for most anime, that he just can't take the kind of over the top. So he commented a couple times, like, what the fuck is that? Like, why is he screaming the whole time? And so I moved on to Demon Slayer, and then that's what I've been watching.
Which it sounds like you're liking a lot more.
Yeah.
After his younger sister, Nezuko is turned into a demon. Yep, that sounds like the beginning to a shonen series, all right.
It's so fucking good. And then there's, the first season is on Netflix, and then on Hulu is, I don't really know if it's like a companion season, but it takes place specifically on a train. But it's about demons, and Nezuko, his sister, is so fucking adorable. She's a demon that he carries around with her, like a little thing on his back, and it's just really fucking good. I bought the Funko Pop of the main character because it's so good.
She is a cute design.
Yeah, it's really
I'll add it to my fucking enormous list of anime I haven't gotten to yet, or TV shows in general. There's just so much stuff to watch now.
Yeah, I end up going back to the same shit. Like, the only thing I'm on top of is Demon Slayer and British Bake Off, because that season just ended. Although they did just release the 2 new holiday episodes, so I have to watch those this weekend. And then we're almost done. We have a couple more episodes left of The Great season 2, and then
yeah, we had a lot of fun with the first season. I need to watch.
It's so good.
It was very funny, I thought.
Yeah, season 2 is amazing.
Have you caught, we're in the middle of, or nearly finished, I guess, Arcane, the first season on Netflix. Just really well animated for a TV show. I was very skeptical at first because I don't like CG animation in general. I don't think it ever looks as good as hand-drawn, but they do such a good job with the texturing and everything. Although for the first couple episodes, I was like, wait a second, this doesn't feel anything. This feels way less like a League of Legends show than a Dishonored show, like the Dishonored games. If you or Jerry have played any of those, like the same vibe of Duskfall and the same kind of art style going on with that very painted on look and texture to all of it. Although I felt like they were gay baiting hard with Victor and Jace, who every shot with them in the younger episodes, it was like every shot was like extremely instantly romantic, and they kept saying things that sounded like sex jokes, and it kept talking about cranking it, which was very funny. And there's like this really tender scene where he's like, oh, as your assistant or whatever, and he's like, no, as my partner, like kind of thing. And it seemed like all that, and then I think they're still indicating it because they go to adulthood. And they framed that scene where he's having sex with the other counselor who's been like trying to get him to go down the path of capital gains and reap the corporate benefits and corruption for yourself. Even though she seems pretty cool otherwise. And it frames the scene of them having sex with Victor's having a heart attack scene as like they're literally killing him by cheating on him kind of thing. But I will say it's been like really fun to watch. Like, and they just like they nail the look of the whole thing. I really like all the episodes where they're young, but after the time skip, all the older characters feel less mature. They feel more childish and cartoony to me, which I think is like it was strange at first. I'm like, why are they less like adults? Why are they more like petty, petulant children and more easily corruptible and all this? It seems like the way the show's portrayed them. And I kind of felt like, oh, it's because they have to become their video game personas now. And Jinx has to be this, like, I thought way over the top, like, oh, I have cartoon schizophrenia and I'm like teleporting like all over here. And I'm just crazy, like pyromaniac because my sister abandoned me when I accidentally killed a bunch of people she loved, which is, it's like all very traumatic, but it's still, I don't know. And Jace is just suddenly seems more petty and more of an, I don't know. I don't like any of the characters as much now that they're older. I'm hoping that'll get, except for Vi still seems to be, is it Vi who's the pink-haired one? Who's the initial main character? Okay, yeah. Yeah, Vi still seems like she's got it together, and it seems like we are going to have a relationship with her and Caitlyn, the rich but good cop, the one good cop, as she's being set up. Is that who it is?
Yeah. Yeah, that's Katie. Oh, I don't know how to say her name. Katie
Sackhoff?
Lu. No, Katie Lu.
Oh no.
She played Cho Chan in Harry Potter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then Haley Steinfeld does Vi. Yeah. Have you played the Borderlands games?
A little. I loved Tales from the Borderlands. I don't like the shooters. In the series. I only played the first couple hours of a few of them. So I know like the main characters. I know Claptrap. I know Athena and some of the other ones from those. Yeah.
Okay, because Jinx to me is basically just Tiny Tina. Yes. And so I just kept saying that I was like, okay, so she's Tiny Tina. We fucking get it. Yeah, I thought her character was a little ridiculous in how over the top she became, because like as Powder, you could kind of, I could give her a pretty good pass.
Yeah, I liked Powder well enough.
Powder was just fucked from the start. Like nothing she did was ever going to work out. But then when she became Jinx, it was like kind of over the top that like she stopped developing the moment that Vi abandoned her. And then, of course, Silco taking her and raising her was not going to do anything good for her emotional maturity either. But yeah, I think, the farther into it you get, the more you'll like Vi. And then the relationship between Vi and Caitlyn gets really cute.
Okay, good. I was hoping they weren't just baiting with all of that and pretending.
Heavily imply. And then I look at so many like fan art pages on Instagram. So like my recommended feed on Instagram is all just like fan art of Vi and Caitlyn, and then everything from What We Do in the Shadows. So it's just Jerry's constantly cracking up like, oh my god.
Oh my god, I forgot did the new season finish? I totally forgot we have new What We Do in the Shadows episodes. That's been airing lately, right?
Yeah, it just wrapped up.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, so we can now watch it because we only do 1 month of Hulu a year. We do our trial, and we're like basing it around. It's like perfect timing because last year we did it for just as I think the Great season 1 came out, or last time we did it was like we binged the Great, we binged the first 2 seasons of What We Do in the Shadows. We binged Lodge 47 or Lodge 49? We binged all of Fargo. Like we saw like an ungodly amount of Hulu shows in 1 month, a whole bunch of what's his name? Werner Herzog documentary movies that were on there, and like all the Hulu exclusives, the terrible or pretty bad Clive Barker By Blood adaptation they did on there. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, and I really, really want to see more What We Do in the Shadows. I love that show. It's just such a joyfully fun and funny thing every episode.
It's so great. So yeah, definitely watch that. Definitely watch The Great Season 2 because that just came out and it's getting really good reviews. People seem to like it more than Season 1.
Great. I thought it was a pretty funny first season too.
Oh, the
So
first
I
season
like
was great, but now moving into Season 2, it's more focused on Catherine and Peter's relationship than I think it kind of was in the beginning, where it was like really focused on her being new and trying to figure out who she is, and now she's pregnant and also still dealing with Peter.
Wait, really? Oh, I'm surprised by that because he dies like what 2 weeks after the coup or something like that. She imprisons him. He doesn't live very long. Mysteriously dies. And she definitely did not assassinate or have her generals assassinate him.
He's still alive. You mean in like
so
IRL?
In real life, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So where the season 1 ended, I'm like, oh, he'll probably die the first episode of season 2. I didn't think he was going to be a major character going forward.
Yeah, well, that's why it says on the title page like a sometimes true story or something like that because they just pick and choose. But I think like I didn't expect to care this much about these characters, but like you learn a lot more about Velamentov and his relationship with Peter, and then the crazy aunt
he's so funny.
The crazy aunt becomes like a massive character, even more so than season 1, and so
whose son is the actual heir or was?
Yeah, she has like him locked up, and she like makes butterflies like land on her fingers and shit.
Yeah, I totally forgot what happened. I assume there's a recap.
There is a recap. Yeah.
Did they kill him at the end of season 1?
I think he died. I can't remember. The recap is not wonderful. It basically is just like a couple different scenes, and it's like you get the gist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hope you're not confused with the real history or the other Catherine the Great show on HBO. But yeah. Which is, I think, trying to be a serious historical.
Oh, totally different vibe from this one.
Yeah.
But then, what's the other show that Jerry started? I think it's on. I tried watching Hit Monkey, couldn't get into it. That's there's a show. What the hell is it called? It's a cartoon, and it's basically like, what if all the conspiracy theories were true?
Oh, like sort of like Eureka or Area. What was that show that was like Area 51-ish? And
yeah, but like way more over the top. Like I came downstairs when Jerry was watching it. I was like, "What the hell are you watching?" Because it was just insane. Oh, what the crap called?
Oh, I gotta run. Gizmo's crying to be.
Aww.
I forgot. I left him in the other room.
Okay.
I'll catch you later, or catch you on the chat, or next time. I guess we don't have a game night this week, right? That's not till
not this week.
Next. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
but
have a great weekend. And,
you too.
Say hi to you. Bye.
I will. Bye.